their
I
alcohol.
can't blame you. Well, welcome everybody. Happy Thursday night. I think I'm going to double check and make sure the stream is actually up and running, but it's good to see you. We're going to have a good time tonight. We're going to talk about the Crusades. We're going to talk about one of the most famous battles and some of the most famous men in the history of the Crusades. Let me actually make sure that I'm up and running. We're running new software. We're up on a different time, so we have to make sure everything is. Yeah, we're up and live. Cool. Good to see everybody. I'm not sure how to look at the live chat is the only problem. But guys, we're going to get up and running. And this, without further ado, is our resident expert, Sam. We've been talking about you a lot. The people have been asking about you. We've been thinking about and waiting for this Crusades episode for a while. Sam, introduce yourself. Let the people know who you are and why you're here. He's a good friend of mine. That's why he's here.
Yes, but I am a good friend of Brandon. And why I'm here, I think this was inspired by a lot of the talks he and I have had about history and specifically the Crusades, and stuff like that. It's I'm Eastern Orthodox, so I kind of have a little bit of a different perspective on the Crusades than a lot of people in the West. And then quite honestly, it's a topic that is very understudied these days, and a lot of the people who do study it tend to have a very kind of negative interpretation of the Crusades, which I don't think is warranted. It's a mixed
yeah, it's just a mixed bag, and it's one of really history's most fascinating rabbit holes, and it's I think really helpful in understanding the totality of world history, because it's like, well, this is really what shaped the world in a lot of ways. And it's I thought, you know what, we've spent so much time talking about it, and I think there's a fair question to say, well, why is this being featured on an Old West focused show? Well, this is really the proto Old West in a lot of ways. This is the knight mounted culture that set the stage in a lot of ways for what would become the cavalry and the cowboy culture, and also the mounted cultures of the native tribes. Also, we've talked a lot about different warrior societies, the dog soldiers, the elkhorn scrapers, the warriors of the Comanche, the Kiowa, the Blackfoot, et al., right? And I think in understanding and appreciating that kind of martial culture, we can apply that appreciation to the Crusades as well, and on both sides. We've talked about this before the show, Sam and I, how it's a mixed bag. It came with a lot of really bad stuff, and it came with a lot of really, really good stuff that I think once you understand the Crusades, a lot of what happened after that really lines up. So we are specifically, guys, also, before we get into this, the merch is up. I want to tell everybody, shameless plug real quick, the merch is up on the YouTube channel. This has been a matter of much contention. So it's up there now. You can go to the main channel. It's under our store tab, and it's also up as a link under the description. So that's all up. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll be putting more merchandise up there. So after that shameless plug, be sure to like, share, subscribe. We've seen the live stream grow quite a bit, which is exciting. So the more you like it, the more you share, the bigger it gets. And let's check the chat real quick. What's up, Theo? Armenian Bishop, man, long time no see. Happy Cappy, good to see you. All right, so we are going to be talking first. Let's kind of give everyone at least kind of 30,000 foot view on the who, what, when, where, why of it. So to kind of lead you into that, the Crusades are, in many people's view, a reaction to Islamic aggression throughout the Spanish, the Iberian Peninsula, throughout Europe, and then Pope, I believe, Urban II and this is off the top of my head, 1096, I believe, calls the First Crusade, and it's basically, I'm going to sum it up real quick and let you take it from here. Basically, like, hey guys, we got to do something about this. Like, we can't just keep getting our butts kicked here, and we can't keep being attacked on the route to the Holy Land. And it's not even necessarily just a Catholic thing. It's about people going to the Holy Land and back.
Yeah, and so the the kind of political realities that kind of precipitated a lot of this, and kind of the Eastern Roman Empire was on the verge of collapse at this point. This is called the Byzantine Empire sometimes by historians, to distinguish it kind of from the older Roman Empire, but it is the continuation of the Roman Empire in the East. And they wouldn't have called themselves Greeks. They wouldn't have called themselves Byzantines. Sure. They called themselves Romans.
Romans, right.
But there's a famous battle that happens, the Battle of Montgisard, where the Byzantines get thoroughly trounced by the Seljuk Turks. And this was the first. They could have been on the decline, but they had periods of like decline and expansion for years.
Kind of ebbed and flowed for a while, right?
Yeah, this was one of the first times where they went out in full force. They had the full might of their armies, and the Turks just slaughtered them.
And this is around what time period?
And Battle of Montgisard is. I'm gonna look that up because I can't.
It's not the First Crusade, though, right? Because one thing,
it's before the First Crusade.
Okay, right before.
The events that kind of that leads up to the First Crusade.
Got it.
It was 1071.
Okay,
and it was in at the aftermath of this, the Seljuk Turks. And Seljuk Turks were a much more militant group when they converted to Islam, and they were expanding. And the Seljuk Turks took basically all of Anatolia, even up to the city of Nicaea. They took the city of Nicaea, which is, a stone throw away from Constantinople.
And can you contextualize that on today's map, just for somebody that doesn't
basically
know?
this is the establishment of Turkey, right?
Got it.
The nation that we call Turkey today is the territory that was kind of conquered by the Seljuk and then later the Ottoman Turks.
Okay.
So they convert to Islam. I don't remember exactly what year, but they when they do, they start this massive expansion, and they beat them very badly. Like, there's at this point that there's a real fear in Constantinople that if they cross the Bosphorus, we don't have enough people to defend Constantinople, which is the capital of the Roman Empire, the
right.
second Rome for all intents and purposes.
This is the center of
yes,
Christendom, essentially.
Yes, and this is after the kind of schism between the Orthodox and,
right.
and the kind of
just after a couple of years,
1054. Yeah. And when the schism in 1054 happened, I think most people didn't suspect it was going to survive beyond like a generation. This is some bishops feuding with each other,
and many people didn't even know it occurred for years and years.
Yeah, exactly. It's funny, in the Orthodox Church we still commemorate Irish saints and English saints past the schism, like to a point past the schism, because they literally didn't know that it. They just didn't
know. And you know what? Really. That just a quick summation for somebody that doesn't really know that history. So you basically have kind of the Catholic and the Eastern Orthodox Church as we know them today were kind of one entity up until 1060. There's things that happened before this, but about 1066, and then there's a schism there, and that creates not just a theological split, but there's a real geopolitical reality that comes along with that.
Yes, and. But after the Battle of Montgisard, so the emperor, the Roman emperor at the time, Emperor Alexius, he writes a impassioned letter to the Pope, who was, I believe, the Pope before Pope Urban II, but I can't remember his name.
It doesn't mean he was Urban the First. I've learned that.
No, yeah. But he writes a very impassioned letter to the Pope and basically says. That I think it starts with, most Holy Father, your children in the East have need of you.
Right. Yeah.
Because they are desperate to get a fighting force assembled to defend their territory.
Just like, listen up, bro. We're hard up over here.
Yeah.
Can you spare a couple dudes?
Yeah. And what they were really hoping for was probably a couple hundred, maybe a couple thousand knights from Europe.
Just a couple dudes. Like, can you send us just a couple of your boys? That's all we really need.
They needed like enough of a mercenary force that they could kind of defend and maybe recapture some of their territory.
And what did they end up getting?
And what they ended up with, though, was the First Crusade.
Oh, wow.
So Pope Urban II especially sees this as a golden opportunity to both kind of solidify Europe really against a common enemy.
Sure.
You know, the Vikings had at this point basically been converted to Christianity, and that was the kind of last big European threat to Christianity.
And they had become Normans. Is that
the Normans were one of the groups of Vikings who converted, but then the Normans being in northern France. The Normans also conquer Sicily and in England later as well. They're both kind of Norman conquests.
Across the channel. The conversion didn't seem to really make them any less.
No, they were
bellicose.
still very warlike. They were they were loosely Christianized Vikings.
But that's better than no Christianized at all.
Yeah. But anyway, you know, since the Vikings had kind of they were the last big threat to European Christendom. And there was a fear among some of the church leaders at the time, Pope Urban II included, that, well, okay, we've got a bunch of these warlike tribes who have converted to Christianity, but if we don't give them someone to fight, they're going to start fighting amongst each other, and we're going to have Europe descend into war.
They're a hammer, and everything's going to start looking like a nail, basically.
Yes, and that had already kind of happened a little bit. So, but then here are the you know, the Muslim aggression was a very real threat to not just
the reality of it,
but also to them as well. At this time, the Moorish kingdoms in control most of Spain. They had just been driven out of Sicily by the Normans.
And can you define Moorish just for
the Moors are a group of they're kind of a mix of Arab and North African ancestry, but they create a kingdom, a Muslim kingdom in Spain and North Africa, and they're one of the they're one of the Islamic caliphates. Islam, since its kind of start, had basically been very rapidly expanding throughout the world.
I mean, they've really only been around since what, the 600s, the 7th century.
600s, I think.
Yeah.
And so, and they for 300 years they had been conquering everything. You know, they conquered Persia, they conquered Egypt, North Africa, and it was in like 730 something that they literally were armies in southern France.
Which is an unimaginable expansion. That is so fast.
Yes, and they were beaten back by Charles Martel, who was the grandfather of Charlemagne. So this idea that kind of, well, Islam is this distant threat was not, you know, that some kind of modern historians try to say. It's like, well, you got to remember that this was within living memory of people that these guys had gotten all the way to southern France. They were the Muslim kind of corsairs had basically made the Mediterranean, which had been the center of the Roman world, the classical world, had basically made the Mediterranean a non-factor.
And the corsairs are kind of their ships, their
yeah, the pirates basically, and they were slave trading pirates, right? So
and that's a rough thing to read about, the Islamic slave trade.
Islamic slave trade was alive and well, and was they were very frequently at this point kind of raiding towns along the coast of the Mediterranean and taking slaves. And
again, just like you would see, you know, not to belabor the Old West point, but it's like, yeah, there's nothing new under the sun. Like the mode of Apaches or Comanches or Blackfoot, whatever, coming in, raiding and taking slaves is nothing new.
It's a very old pattern in history.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like the type of threat that the people were living under then is very similar to that people lived under in the Old West. There's just a lot of parallels.
So this was kind of, so after Manzikert, and again this letter that Emperor Alexius writes, this is kind of Pope Urban II's golden opportunity to come to the rescue of the East. We're going to unite the European monarchs around a common threat, and ideally even kind of we're gonna get the Byzantines to agree to reunion under papal supremacy.
Because like, come on, you're asking us for help. Like,
yes, exactly. Yeah. This was, and I think Emperor Alexius wrote that knowing that he might end up having to make that bargain.
Listen up, dog. Nothing's free.
Because it was like, well, but here's the issue. If these guys are really good at fighting, and if they get on boats and cross the Bosporus, we're really screwed.
And that's not just like a geopolitical we're screwed. Like, oh, now we're gonna live under new government.
They sack the city and kill thousands of people and
virtually all the men
slaves. Yeah. The Turks were utterly brutal. They were barbaric in how they kind of treated captives. And they were very aggressive and warlike people.
It's a certain ruthless pragmatism where it's just like they don't even necessarily hate all the guys that they're going to unalive, right? Like they're just getting rid of them because they pose a threat. And then anybody too young that they have to take care of, they're going to get rid of them because it's just too much trouble. And there's just a ruthless inhumanity to it.
There is. And so what ends up kind of happening again is that a couple of very prominent lords hear this kind of call to crusade and start raising armies to send to the Holy Land. Most of the lords of the First Crusade are Normans, either from Sicily or from France.
Okay.
And they raise a massive army, and they start marching it to Constantinople.
So this is a massive army of all these collective lords, and
along with tens of thousands of camp followers, pilgrims, and other people just kind of along for the ride. I mean, what sometimes people don't understand about armies in the ancient classical world is your army might be like 2,000 guys, but that's not including the 8,000 people who are tagging along with you as kind of camp followers and engineers, people supplying food.
Almost any military force. Yeah, it's just the first 10% are fighting.
Requires a huge amount of support. So the Crusader armies show up at Constantinople, and this is like, oh, wait a minute, this is way more than we bargained for. And they kind of end up negotiating with the Crusaders. Basically, they initially convinced them to okay, well, we'll give you ships. We'll let you cross the Bosphorus here, and we'll give you ships. We'll give you kind of military and like tactical and logistics support. We'll give you some engineers with our Greek fire, which was their kind of Byzantine secret weapon.
Yeah, it's a real
which was basically primitive napalm.
Right? Yeah, it was a real threat.
It was a very effective weapon, and it was very, very tight. The secrets to it were very tightly controlled by the Byzantine Empire.
Secret weapons are nothing new.
Really. No, that's nothing new, and it was one of their trump cards. But they and of course, returning all previously owned Byzantine territories was like that's everything in the in the Middle East. So the Crusaders probably really didn't have any inclination of following that agreement.
No way.
They accepted it. And so they kind of off to the start. There's this very kind of complicated relationship between the Crusaders and the Byzantines. They need each other, but there's also a lot of tension between the two of them. This really hits off once the Byzantines kind of ferry them over, and the Crusaders want to immediately go to the Holy Land, and the Byzantines are like, oh, okay, we can't just let them just go straight to the Holy Land. We got to conquer some of these other territories first and get back some of our territories.
It's like they first got to LA and they're like, well, we got to go check out Disneyland. And they're like, well, listen, like we got to do these things first. Yes.
And so it's a, they cross them over the Bosphorus. They lay siege to Nicaea, which had been recently taken by the Seljuk Turks, and was a very important city in both the Byzantine Empire and the history of Christendom. Absolutely. Too, right? I mean, this is the first ecumenical council held at the Council of Nicaea, right?
Which is shaped, I mean, regardless of your present day denomination, has shaped Christianity as we know it.
Yes, it's a very important historic city. But anyway, the Crusaders lay siege to Constantinople, or not to Constantinople, to Nicaea. And the siege is kind of ongoing. Sieges in the ancient world, especially on some of these older cities, which they have massive walls, they take a long time.
A long time.
And they the Crusaders start to get impatient. That things are taking too long. They haven't got their a lot of these Crusader lords. They people sign up to go fight on the promise of loot and kind of that they're going to bring. They're either going to take or bring back with them. And so the longer the siege starts going, the more kind of disgruntled people get. And so eventually the kind of head figure in the Crusade, and I'm trying to remember who the name of some of the names of some of these figures are.
There's a lot of names.
Yeah. Who's the first kind of who?
That's why I'm not great at keeping track of it, but it's the nature of siege warfare really that I kind of underestimated before studying it, because it's like I don't even think it's going to make a comeback. I'm not worried about it coming back because we don't have the attention span for it anymore. I thought when I was first, this is years ago, I was first studying it, but it's like, oh, I don't know, a couple of weeks. And it's like, no, they'll do years. Like, these dudes don't care. They'll just post up. Like, what if it was your house and these guys just sat outside your house for 2 years? Like, it's gonna eventually, you're gonna run out of food. You're gonna run out of et cetera, et cetera.
And people get and you get a bunch of guys who are fighters. They're gonna get pent up in it, and they get antsy.
Yeah,
fights start to break out or whatever.
And they're thinking like, well, hey, bro, we came all this way to Nicaea, and now we're not going to get paid. You're making us wait to get paid.
And because, and so basically they take this gambit. I think it is Raymond of Toulouse at this point is the main figure. Somebody's at the chat is posting a bunch of names. Yeah, but a bunch of these guys are some of the main figures. But anyway, they take all the prisoners they have had at this point. And they take them in front of the walls of Nicaea, and they execute them all in order to kind of in front of the walls to try to break the spirit of the defenders.
Which, to be honest with you, it kind of break my spirit.
Yes.
At least I'd have to have
and it did break their spirit, just not in the ways that they intended. Because in the dead of night, the emissaries from the kind of, at that point, the Muslim lords of Nicaea go to the Byzantines and say, we want to surrender to you rather than these guys.
rather than the what the Catholic faction, or like, how would you term that? Like,
yes, well, to the Crusaders, just Crusaders. Okay. And so they do that, and so they wake up in the morning, and all of a sudden there are Byzantine flags flying on Nicaea, and this really does piss the Crusaders off, who were looking forward to sacking the city.
They slid in on them. They slid in. They kind of,
And they. So this is kind of. We're going to skip over some of the history to get to the from this point, because this kind of trek continues where the Byzantines kind of convince them to keep taking these other cities that are more important to them, but eventually they do arrive at the Holy Land. They kind of and eventually they do in fact take Antioch, and they take Jerusalem, and they establish kind of
which it's modern day Syria, and obviously
Antioch is actually technically in Turkey, modern day Turkey, like in the south of Turkey, kind of on the border of Turkey and Lebanon.
Not a geography channel, folks. My bad.
But Antioch was a very major city within the ancient world, and had been for a very long time, and another one of the kind of centers of Christianity as well.
And they're working their way southward.
They're working their way south, right? Yeah. And so they eventually, again, they take a bunch of this territory, and they don't want to, at this point, kind of relationships with the Byzantines have soured, and like, well, we're not going to just turn over all this territory we've conquered to them. So they establish two major states, kind of Crusader nations within their conquered territory: the Principality of Antioch and the Kingdom of Jerusalem. And then there's, I think, the Duchy of Edessa is a smaller one as well. There are a couple smaller areas as well that they control that kind of become their own.
These are now under Crusader jurisdiction.
Yes, and they basically settle there, right? They decide, well, we're not going to go back. It's too expensive, and honestly, this area is kind of nice.
Who could blame them?
There's a lot of riches here, and so they established these kingdoms in the Holy Land. and this is a real kind of this is the first time since the rise of Islam that Islam had been beaten back.
True. First huge loss for them. So this is
Yes.
like kind of, I don't
And
know, like Mike Tyson right after Buster Douglas, where it's like, well, we haven't seen him lose yet. We don't know what's going to happen after that.
It's Edessa is the duchy, but yeah. Someone I was answering a question. Yeah. So
the chat is tricky, right?
They really do have to. The Muslims have to kind of reconsider things. They had kind of been on this rise since the beginning of their history, and here they are now. They've lost the Holy Land. They've lost kind of Jerusalem again, which is a big center of faith for their religion as well.
Yeah, I was going to say the geography that they're fighting for is important to. Judaism, Islam, and Christianity. All three religions hold it as a holy land, right? Which is we're seeing the repercussions of today. Like this kind of sets the stage for everything. Very much so,
and yeah, so there's the Crusader states are established, and they basically kind of hold the line for a couple hundred years against Islam. And again,
are they just surrounded by Islamic territories?
Yes.
Wow.
And at this point, kind of one of the things that this does, this is prior to this, the Islamic world had been a lot more united in its kind of but this loss really kind of shook them, and it basically the rather than kind of having a unified Islamic force, they kind of divide into smaller caliphates.
And can you tell what a caliphate is?
It's a kingdom. It's
a jurisdiction.
Yeah. It's a it would be the equivalent of saying a kingdom, basically.
Right. But they're becoming more and more fractionalized.
There's a little bit more to it than that, but we can
just for the purposes of understanding kind of the general.
Yeah. Someone says city state in the chat. That's probably a good
oh, that's Josh. Josh knows this stuff. What's up, Josh?
Yes. They kind of solidified into kind of different caliphates as opposed to having kind of a unified leader. And it really isn't until Salah ad-Din kind of starts uniting them again that they get a unified leader again.
And he's going to kind of lead. He's going to be a pivotal figure in this battle of. I always mispronounce it.
Montgisard.
Okay.
Montgisard. Yeah, it's a French pronunciation.
Yeah, hillbillies don't speak French, man.
So yeah. Well, we are gonna watch the movie at some point too, right?
Yeah, I thought to kind of explain.
The Battle of Montgisard is a good lead in to the Kingdom of Heaven, because it's referenced in in the movie, and it's also it's kind of directly precedes that. So basically, the Crusader states are established, but they are outnumbered and they are surrounded, and they're holding the line. You found these kind of orders of these military and religious orders, the Templars and Hospitallers, and a couple other smaller ones as well. And
really, it was the Hospitallers first, to my understanding, right? And then the Templars kind of evolved from them.
I think it's the Templars who are first.
Okay.
But I am not. Don't quote me on that one.
And the Knights Hospitallers, it's in the name that they set up hospitals, basically.
Yes, one of the things and these orders were founded initially to kind of protect pilgrims.
They set up hospitals along the route to the Holy Land.
Yes, and to guard very important religious sites. Like Bethlehem and the Holy Sepulchre, and the Crusader states, the Europeans are very good. The kind of European lords at this time are very good at like the tactics for holding territory, building castles everywhere. Right, it's a very effective tactic for holding territory. So they fortify the Holy Land. They build these castles everywhere.
It's just simple enough to work. It's so brilliant. And we're just going to build this impregnable building.
It's not even impregnable. The thing about castles is you can, if you commit to a siege, you can probably take it. but it's like, how long is it going to take you?
Could be years.
How many people is it going to take you who are going to die?
Could be thousands. Yeah.
Yes, and how many months? And in that meantime, have the rest of the lords mustered a force to basically to oppose you or to come to the rescue?
100%. And
so
then is that cost going to be worth the looting you're going to get to do? Like,
yes,
are you going to get, even if you win, are your men going to be mad at you because they didn't really, it wasn't worth the juice wasn't worth the squeeze?
Exactly. And so it's a, but since the kind of establishment of the Crusader states, they are slowly losing territory. Basically, the whole like up into like from the point of their initial kind of borders, they are slowly losing territory because they just don't have the numbers. There's not as much, there's kind of various influxes of people from Europe coming and settling there and going on crusade.
And this is the time where people, they believe that they are granted indulgences from not just Pope Urban II, but this carries on over centuries, right? So,
yes, they were. It was a holy calling for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
But then it was also an opportunity for people who were opportunistic and kind of thuggish to go in and make their wealth and seize territory.
How could it not be? I mean, I don't even mean that in a derogatory way, just like it's human nature.
Of the original Crusader lords, some of them were genuinely honorable men, who thought they were doing God's work. And some of them were opportunistic thugs
100%
who wanted to get rich, and maybe they were the second son of wherever they were from. So it was like, well, I'm not going to inherit my territory in Europe, and I got to go make a name for myself somewhere.
You saw a lot of second sons and third sons in the Crusades.
Go on Crusades. And it also became a way for nobles in Europe to kind of dispose of problematic children. Yeah. It's like, okay, well, if this guy's around here, he's gonna start fights with his siblings over succession.
It's like sending him to military school.
We're gonna send him on crusade. Go fight for the Holy Land. But this created problems within the Crusader states as well, because especially as you start getting second and third and fourth generation Crusaders. So the people who are of European descent, but they were born there.
They were
born there, and they were much more integrated than with the kind of culture and the peoples that were living there at the time. And then they would start getting frustrated at these kind of recent people coming over from Europe who were making problems and trying to kind of disrupt the peace.
Yeah, like socially disrupt it. Like they'd be really hardcore and be like, well, we got to get rid of all our enemies. And they'd be like, listen, bro, why don't you just take 5 minutes?
There was a lot of tension within the Crusader states, even themselves. Again, they're losing territory.
This is an honest question. Is it 3 factions? Is it the Byzantines, the Crusaders, or is it Christians versus Islam?
So the Byzantines kind of maintain this kind of complicated relationship with the Crusaders, where they are supplying them, they are kind of helping. It's a little bit of enemy of my enemy is my friend kind of thing.
Okay.
And this is like, okay, well, as long as the Crusader states exist, that is keeping the Muslims like focused on them.
Yeah,
which also let them retake territory, refortify their own borders.
Sure. But they didn't view this as a great crusade for themselves. They saw this as
it was a complicated relationship. Now that said, they individual nobles and lords did intermarry a lot between the Greeks, like the Greek kind of
oh, I didn't know that.
Byzantines. Yeah. So
okay.
The main character in Kingdom of Heaven, Balian of Ibelin, is a real person.
Now, is that Orlando Bloom?
Yes, Orlando Bloom plays, and Balian of Ibelin is a real person. And now they fictionalize his backstory.
Sure.
But he is a real person, and he was a I don't remember what generation. I don't know what generation, but he was born of kind of Crusader parents, but he was born in the Holy Land. Lived there his whole life. He married a relative of the Byzantine emperor, so he married a Greek woman, right?
Oh wow. So there is still open lines between these.
Yes, there's still open lines. They know that they need each other. They are aligned with each other, but it's not just a completely happy relationship.
The Byzantines aren't all in on the Crusades, nor do they believe that they are gaining indulgences. They don't have a theological.
No, there's not really a theological stuff with that. but it is a use. It's a use. It's their only ally in the
Sure.
region at this point. For the most part, they like them and sometimes the Armenians as well. But
you got to take what you can get.
Yes, and
so, but then you've had generations of Crusaders here by this point.
Yes, and so you start to kind of a lot of the kind of more native Crusaders, like the people born in the Holy Land, were much more integrated with the kind of the lifestyle of
right.
The culture of the people who live there, and so you start getting kind of eventually you get to the rise of Saladin, and Saladin is he's the greatest military tactician of his age.
Yes.
Up until basically Richard the Lionheart,
right.
he is a military genius, and he starts uniting the different Muslim caliphates. With his army of Mamluks. Mamluks are slave soldiers. They're his kind of elite fighting force. And
they are. Do you have? I only know them kind of peripherally. So the
Mamluks are kind of the Muslim answer to the Knights, basically.
Okay, but they are slaves.
They were born. Yes, they were born as slaves. They were taken like slaves who were taken like as young boys or were born into slavery. Oftentimes you have multiple generations of Mamluks. It would like their children would go on and become Mamluks themselves. There were special schools where they were trained, and they were basically trained from birth to be warrior slaves. My
daddy was a Mameluke. His daddy was a Mameluke.
Yeah. Now that didn't mean like just being a slave didn't necessarily mean that you couldn't accumulate wealth and power, and they many Mamluks did.
So they did have plenty of incentive to go ahead and
yes,
be kind of the brunt of the first force, the edge of the sword for Saladin.
Yes, yeah. So there was plenty of incentive. Like they were promoted to positions of power, and they were his elite force, and he unites the different kind of Muslim caliphates from like Egypt into Syria as well.
Okay.
So at this point, his territory now just completely surrounds the Crusaders. And he starts closing in on them. And Saladin is a military genius. He has won up until this point. He's won every battle that he's ever faced.
And is this battles against other caliphates as well?
As his kind of rise to power, he has to take out his rivals.
And what's his? Sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry.
His ultimate goal is to retake the Holy Land.
That was going to be my question, right?
And it's kind of the part of the bargain that he makes is like he is able to unite the people around him on the promise that he's going to be able to retake all this captured territory.
Islam believes this is rightfully theirs, and like it's a holy war on their end as well, right? To retake it.
Yes, and Saladin at this is a noble man. Like even by Western accounts, is considered it was a very honorable, noble person.
And the Kingdom of Heaven depicts this,
and it does. Argue, and he has kind of this relationship with King Baldwin IV. We'll talk about, but Baldwin IV is one of the most remarkable people in all of history.
The more I research it, it's humbling. It really is.
Yeah. And the man very well may have been a saint. As far
I'm surprised he's not.
He was. Baldwin IV was he was made king at a very young age because he was next in line.
Early teens, right?
And he would have been afflicted with leprosy from his youth. For those of you who do not know what leprosy is or how it works, there is a reason that this is like the worst fate can befall you in the ancient world is leprosy. It's curable in the modern day with modern medicine, for the most part, outside of a few real fringe cases.
Sure.
But it's basically a disease where your skin rots off your body.
And if you want a visual representation of this, I'm sure most people in the chat have seen Braveheart. There's the King of Scotland, the rightful King of Scotland?
Yeah, it was Robert the Bruce's father, right?
Right.
But
and he's clearly in that movie. He's clearly having a bad time, and this is what Baldwin IV was suffering.
Yes, and he'd been afflicted from his youth. He had to wear a mask, like a silver mask. because
shown
again
in the movie
his
too.
face was so deformed that people in court couldn't stand to look at him.
And he's in great pain all the time.
He's in pain all the time. He can't do anything physically, and everybody for years, people have been wondering, okay, well, eventually he's going to wake up and die because nobody expected him to live as long as he did.
Every day, basically, they're like, well, he made it another one, you know.
Salah ad-Din at this point is marching on Jerusalem, and his army is 26,000 people, which is
that's an entire small town. Like
yes, and the what's left of the kind of defense force in Jerusalem can maybe muster 8,000 people. Maybe.
So and at best case a third. So like you're looking at
And at this point they have a war council, and they go to King Baldwin and they say, you need to flee the city to go to Acre, which will hold out for a little bit longer.
Which
Acre
is Acre. Acre.
ACRE.
We're in Texas, so we call it Acre.
Yeah. But it's another. It was a prominent city in the Crusader states, and it was a port town too. So port towns are a little bit harder to besiege. So even if they continue their Salah ad-Din continues conquest, they would hold out a bit longer.
Because you can only really surround it from 3 sides at best.
As long as you kind of don't blockade the port, you can't starve the city out very easily because you can get supplies in. But anyway, Baldwin IV refuses. He says no, we're going to ride out to meet them, and
which is insane. This guy's
he is. You know, but it shames them all, you know, because here's this guy who is this afflicted with leprosy from as a teenager, afflicted with leprosy
his whole life.
And he's going to ride into battle. And they all thought at this point, like, okay, we're going to have our one little final charge. This is our last moment.
This is
and they rode with them. They rode for something like 4 nights, 4 days and nights.
And this whole time you're going, well, this is it. Like this is it. And in Baldwin's case,
their forces are exhausted. Their men are exhausted, and they arrive.
Baldwin has leprosy. Like he's just
they arrive at Montgisard, and Salah ad-Din's force wasn't 20,000 like they'd expected. It was 26,000. But they get incredibly lucky because at this point Salah ad-Din had basically thought he had won. He basically won.
He thinks it's a foregone conclusion.
Yeah. Well, and anybody in his position would have, quite honestly.
Yeah.
So his army, rather than kind of being concentrated, was spread out over a large area. They were like sitting at foraging groups.
And is there any veracity to the? I've read that they were getting held up with supply lines at the river. Maybe there was some extenuating circumstances that
it's possible, but basically they were not expecting to be attacked.
Right.
It was unthinkable that they were going to be attacked. So it didn't matter. So they didn't have proper defensive lines set up.
But why would you? It's not that Saladin was an idiot. It's just like, well,
he got overconfident though.
Yeah.
And he did learn from this mistake too, which is important. But they arrive and they catch them unprepared. They're in forge, so they're hurriedly assembling battle lines, and
Saladin's men are assembling battle lines.
Lines. They're trying to get everything set up, and Baldwin orders the charge. He led by kind of 500 Templar knights who are warrior monks sworn to fight to the death and never retreat.
I know they're very controversial, but I think for a layperson's understanding of this, myself included,
I think they're less controversial if you actually know that. I think they've
I agree.
Figure because they're frequently targeted by kind of pseudo historic like literature and other stuff as like a boogeyman.
We have some people in the chat that I know are dubious of the Knights Templar, but I will say, regardless of that, just to understand this, for me, what helps to understand this, visualize it a little better, is Knights Templar are Delta Force of the. They are the top of the top, and they do nothing else. They're warrior monks. Like they don't have any property.
Yes. They're committed to the cause of fighting and dying for Christ.
That is it. The end.
And
It's like they're intense dudes.
They're intense dudes, but they've been riding for like 4 days,
Yeah.
and they are exhausted. Their horses should be exhausted.
Absolutely.
They're
in heavy armor. This is just miserable.
Yeah,
it's hot. Yeah.
It's hot, here. But they charge, and to the surprise of everybody, their charge connects, and they just keep going. And then they're followed up by like 2,000 other knights who push in. Then Baldwin leads the infantry himself and hits from the other side. And the territory that they're in, there's these kind of ravines. So the enemies can't form up properly, and as they as they kind of fall back, they start falling into these ravines and getting stuck. It becomes
That's the worst. Yeah.
And so Saladin and his kind of men are looking on at a horror at their lines are their elite guard. His elite guard is collapsing in front of
him.
And
they're too spread out to really coalesce. Is that right? Like,
yes. And they're hurriedly trying, but yeah, Baldwin doesn't give them the time to kind of assemble a proper battle line.
And this is a guy who shouldn't be able to stand, much less get on a horse.
And here's a guy, and he's also and this is confirmed by multiple eyewitness accounts, including Muslim eyewitness accounts, who see Baldwin leading the charge himself on a horse, lifting up his sword, delivers a speech, and then like, who he's a guy,
it's not
he's
possible.
Head to toe in bandages.
Yeah.
Like he should be dead. No, he should not be able to do this, but he did, and is confirmed again by even the Muslim accounts of this battle are basically God is with them.
I was thinking about that earlier. It's like they kind of go like,
for whatever reason, Allah has abandoned us.
Yeah, you win some, you lose some.
And Saladin ends up basically he forced to flee on a riding camel.
And which is a mass. That's like the worst of the worst.
Yeah. And he's seen publicly fleeing on a camel while his army just collapses. And 26,000 people. It's 26,000 man army, and basically they all die.
And I mean, like, take that in for a second, where it's like 500 guys crashed this, and they had to all think like, I thought about this.
They were going to die. They all thought this was their last glorious moment.
It's game over.
And then all of a sudden, wait a minute, we're winning.
Do you think the guys behind them were like, they were kind of like, oh crap, now we have to go? Like,
maybe, but it was also they got so caught up in the kind of momentum and the adrenaline that all these people like started fighting way harder and longer than should have been humanly possible. This is a battle studied by military historians as a kind of the kind of case in point of morale. It's what wins battles.
Absolutely,
especially in the ancient world.
Because once you saw it, like this we can't overstate.
This is an instance of basically what happens with the Muslim lines is mass panic.
Yeah, and it just all falls apart. And this is essentially, correct me if I'm wrong, this is essentially the best army on the planet at the time.
Yeah, well, led by the guy who is the preeminent military strategist of his age.
And this guy with leprosy, who's what, mid-20s?
No, he's 15.
Oh, he's 15 at this time. Okay.
Yeah.
Because he passes away at 38. He still passes away very young.
He's in his 20s.
He's in his 20s. All right. My bad. I got a lot of numbers.
I think 28 is when he. But so not only do they win, but they also recover Salahadin's entire war chest. So the entire kind of war, all of the treasury that he had assembled to basically
all his swag,
fund this army, they recover that entire thing. And the kingdom of Jerusalem at this point is on the verge of bankruptcy. This is a windfall that's massive for them.
And for them,
they're able to take this money and they buy themselves 10 years.
10 years, which is like
they're able to resupply their garrisons. They're able to rebuild their army, their armed forces, and kind of wait for more people to come from Europe. This was huge for them.
Imagine like finding enough money to what if you found enough money to run Texas for 10 years? Yeah. Like you'd be like, whoa, crap, that's a lot of money.
And his empire, Saladin's empire almost collapsed. His allies started to, some of his allies abandoned him because it's like,
you were saying that because they were kind of going like, well, we all coalesced for you and then you let us down. Is that right?
Well, and not only that, but you fled on a camel.
on a camel, bro.
Which was camels are great pack animals, but elegant they are not.
It's very, that evoked to me the same thing happened with General Santa Anna, where he fled on a donkey.
Yes,
and that was a big deal. It was like, not the donkey, dog.
Yeah, because it's very inelegant, and it was
almost worse than the retreat. They're just like, retreat if you have to, but don't do it on this particular animal.
Yeah, don't do it on a camel or a donkey, right? It's a real mark of disgrace that you had to do that.
And after this, to my understanding, okay, so Baldwin wins, but they're still in kind of, he doesn't have enough to redouble on that attack, double down on it.
No, well, and they also, I think they basically have the people basically collapse after it out of exhaustion.
The soldiers physically collapse from exhaustion.
Yeah, so does Baldwin. I mean, they well, and they do. They kill like almost the entire 26,000 people,
which is like just physically, that's a lot. That's a lot of work.
Yes, and they hacked through a lot of people. That those ravines got filled up with bodies.
That's a lot of calories. That's a lot of calories expended.
And they fought. And again, they'd been riding for something like 4 days, and it was crazy. It was crazy
and so they had to ride 4 days to get back too, huh?
Yes, wow. But it was a crazy set of things that happened, but it sets the clock back on the Crusader kingdoms for another 10 years as they're able to kind of refortify their position. And that kind of leads us. That's a good leads us into where we are at the kind of start of Kingdom of Heaven, which is the movie we're going to be watching. We are watching the director's cut, right? I think I told you.
Yeah. So people in the chat asked me that, and I was like, "Don't worry, Sam insisted on the director's cut."
I actually thought that the theatrical cut was fine when I originally watched it, but then now that I've seen the director's cut, especially, it's way better.
I don't think I've seen the
movie that broke Ridley Scott, by the way. I think Ridley Scott is one of my favorite directors, but he has made both my favorite movie and my least favorite movie.
Yeah, but his good ones are good. Like
his good ones are good, but some of his bad ones. I think really post this movie, I think he stopped caring. I think he was so disheartened by what the studios did to Kingdom of Heaven.
Oh, they cut that much.
Oh yeah, really? He was so disheartened by it. That I think he kind of in his movies post Kingdom of Heaven. Yes, Napoleon. His version of Napoleon was utterly terrible.
I didn't even watch it. I figured it.
Oh God, it's terrible.
I figured it was not going to be good.
Which is sad because Ridley Scott has made some of the best historic movies as well.
When he's hot, and when he's not, he's not.
Yes, and well, again, I think he was so disheartened by what the studios did to Kingdom of Heaven that I think he kind of gave up.
But Kubrick-esque, right?
He's like, I'm going to put my name on stuff and take the paycheck and not care anymore.
This movie got a lot. I thought it was good when it came out, and it got so much flack for so long. And the Crusades were castigated as 100% evil aggression on the behalf of Western Christianity, and it's like that's just not accurate either. As with most history, it's somewhere kind of in the middle to be really circumspect about it.
And it's a mixed bag with the Crusades. You get Baldwin IV, who is one of the most amazing kings who ever lived.
And then you get some real stinkers.
And you get Renaud de Chatillon, who was a bastard, who would not stop raiding caravans even when he was told not to. And
they're so far away from a governing authority that if they're not a good guy, they can just go.
That's the reality of feudalism. Is that it's very feudalism is very decentralized power. In terms of kind of political and economic systems.
It is, isn't it? Yeah.
It's a very decentralized system of power. And yes, you have a king and you pledge fealty to the king, but the king's not around. The king's over in his own castle, and I've got my own territory that I rule.
And we ain't got no telephones. We don't have anything,
exactly. Yeah. So, but yeah, let's, I think it's probably enough,
Okay, so a question I did want to ask, if you have time, I'd like to ask just kind of a general philosophic question. That is your opinion, but I think one of the greatest, I don't know if an insult is quite the word, but it's close enough that I can levy at someone in history, is to call them a great man with a capital G. And some of the, because that it is assigned to Napoleon, or you could say Caligula was a great man, or Caesar, and they did some objectionable things, and they were very egotistical. A lot of times they may have done the right thing for the wrong reasons.
Napoleon was a great man. I think he.
Okay, but do you think Baldwin, and I would ask the same thing for Saladin, were they great men with a capital G or a lowercase G?
I think they were both great men, kind of without needing to qualify that.
Oh, very slick.
Obviously, they did have they.
You should run for office.
I know. Saladin is almost considered a saint in Islam, which they don't have saints, but if they did, it would be Saladin.
And it'd be understandable. I mean, it's from that
he was by all accounts a very noble and just man.
And we kind of glossed over that real quick. Sorry.
He did assassinate a lot of people in his rise to power.
But he was honorable in his treatment of Baldwin, as you see in the movie, right?
Yes. Well, he had a great respect, especially after Battle of Montgisard. He had a great respect for Baldwin. And he was reluctant to waging war against him at this point, because this is, and Baldwin was also not he was not interested in persecuting the Muslims who were going to the Holy Land either. He allowed the Muslims to come and go to their holy places.
He had kind of grown up around them.
Yeah, he allowed the caravans to come, and he protected them as best he could. The caravans trade, various traders and such, because this is how most of the kind of Islamic world made their living. A lot of
which is a wild thing to do, to militarily, you dominate the territory and still allow the caravans to run. Like that's
yeah. And so they needed that. They needed the incense trade, which is very important to that region, and the spice trades as well.
Spice I knew about, yeah.
Incense as well. Incense, a lot of incense comes from the kind of the Red Sea, the area.
I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm. A lot of what creates incense. So yes, that's very important.
Would that have been important in a liturgical context for?
Well, it's valuable. It's a valuable trade good that people want,
And it's only available from that one area.
I think it may be cultivated other places too, but that is that is the area that it's from, or predominantly from. Somebody else who's more up on that can look that one up. But
somebody in the chat will know.
Yeah.
Chat, we're going to check you out in a second too. We're just kind of finishing up the subject, and I'm going to check the chat out.
But they needed the trade to keep going, right? They were going to be in big trouble if they didn't have that. And the Crusader states, based on their positioning, they could have shut all that down if they had wanted to.
But it's it's at least behooves them both to allow that to continue on.
Yeah. And so to Baldwin and Saladin, I don't know who's saying this in the chat, but it's had a I think by the accounts that I've read, have had a mutual respect for each other.
That's Mark Kavitsky. What's up, Mark?
So
I'll tell you what. We'll if you have anything else you want to cover, or you want to get into the chats if you have time.
No, let's I can't think of anything else.
And this will be a multi-part series. We'll keep coming back and talking about.
I mean, I definitely think King Baldwin is unqualified in his greatness, right? He's one of the greatest kings that has ever lived.
It's blown me away just in the little bit of research that I've done for this.
It's just amazing guy. Now Saladin is a little bit more complicated, and he did have he again, like I said, he did assassinate a bunch of his rivals in his rise to power. But he also, he treated his conquered lands, the Christians there, justly for the most part as well.
And I mean, listen, you know what I mean? In the grand scheme of history, if you assassinate just a couple people, and
you gotta remember that assassinations are just part of the way the world worked.
It's just like mowing. It was like mowing the lawn.
World, even today, there's still a lot of assassinations are a political reality that we kind of in the West don't face, but if you are a much more prominent part of history than we think about.
But still, you would say that lowercase or uppercase, they are great men.
So to answer the person who's talking about leprosy is treatable today, and for the most part is curable. There are very extremely rare cases where you can have if you get leprosy and are also allergic to the cure for leprosy.
That would suck.
I think even then it's treatable in certain ways now. So it's basically a non-factor in the modern world. It's not hard to treat.
Anytime somebody says they wish they lived in history, I'm like, no.
But in the ancient world and in the medieval, like the leprosy was a death sentence. It was a slow death sentence, and you were also it's contagious. So you had to be isolated because people didn't want to be around you.
There's actually a scene in Kingdom of Heaven where he makes them kiss his.
Yes, that's one of the best scenes in the movie.
Leprotic,
where he kiss his hand because his leprous hand because.
Now, is the inference behind that? I could have just looked this up, but is the inference behind that now you were a leper as well?
No, you could get it. Like you weren't guaranteed to get it, but it was contagious. And they didn't fully know how it got transmitted in this day and age, but they did know enough
that it did get transmitted.
That you didn't want to be around people who were leprous because you could get it.
And King Baldwin also grows up like this, right? With like people afraid to touch him or be in contact with him. Yeah.
Yes. And they were. It was hideous to look at. It's grotesque.
Mm-hmm.
Because. And that's why in the ancient world, like the lepers typically weren't allowed to be in the city. They were sent in the outskirts. You couldn't be around other people.
There's still kind of a loose social term or a
leper colony.
And just like you're treated like a leper, etc. It's like, well, no, that comes from
it was a real thing, and that was and it was out of necessity.
It was.
Had Baldwin not been the king, or a man of status and power, that's what happened to him.
He even had to he had to do so many things. He had to learn to ride in a different way because he couldn't utilize that arm to ride. So he had to learn how to fight using his legs. He had to take special lessons to control the horse with his legs. He had to go through it. He had to do things a lot differently to work around it.
He had to basically custom train his horse so he could still ride. I mean, the guy's amazing.
He's amazing. I would have called it a day. I would have just been like, you know what? He wanted the job. He was like, I can do this.
He was, and for 10 years, people thought he's going to die any day now.
We thought he was going to die yesterday. We think he's going to die today. He's probably going to die tomorrow. Every day. How is he doing
this? It defied the even modern understanding of medicine. How he could have survived that. I
am surprised that he's not a saint. I would say that. I think I really am. Maybe he will be it someday, but
maybe I think it's a complicated thing for the church to try to make saints out of crusaders.
No, it is. I understand.
A little bit like you're making too much of a political statement that they tend to not want to do.
Totally get it. And that sometimes those things take decades.
I mean, they kind of they already kind of got in trouble when they made Joan of Arc a saint.
I was just going to say Joan of Arc. Yeah. And it's like, well, you kind of burned
the Catholic Church did that. It's like, you're kind of pissed off a lot of.
We got to pace ourselves with these controversial saints, like one every couple centuries, but not going to do them all at once. Well, let's check the chat real quick. I'll see. We got a bunch of the regulars. What's up, Mojo? Got Armenian Bishop, Happy Cappy. I think Bama Deanna is in here somewhere. I know I saw Bama Deanna earlier. Let's see. I'm gonna look for a question. Xavier says, "Don't say unalive. It's embarrassing and paints you as an imbecile." Well, a lot of things paint me as an imbecile. Doesn't mean I'm gonna stop doing them. Let's see.
Doesn't the YouTube algorithm get mad at certain things? Like, right?
We got mods in here. The mods are handling it. I think you could call me an imbecile. That's okay. But just
well, I know you, so I know you're an imbecile.
Man, I appreciate it, man. At least it's at least I'm an honest person, though. What you see is what you get. Yeah. Let's see. We got a super chat. Thank you very much, Jake Skywalker. Appreciate it, my friend. Thank you, man. Let's see. Hail chat. What's up, Elite Super Grunt? Josh McAllister. What's up, dog? I was hoping you make it. We welcome. We got some contention in there. If somebody's giving you trouble, Josh, just ban them. You got the wrench, man. Let's see. Got some talk about quilts. Yeah, if you guys have any questions, toss them in now. We got a couple minutes. Well, Armenian alliance with Crusaders was praised by Pope Gregory XIII. Armenians assisted these warriors with their utter courage and loyalty during the Holy Wars. Oh, so the Armenian alliance was critical.
And there was an Armenian quarter of Jerusalem at this time too, that persisted for much later because the Armenians were very. Armenia is the, if people don't know, was the first nation to convert to Christianity.
Right. Yeah.
The second being Ethiopia. So next time somebody tells you Christianity is a white man's religion, you can you can point out that well, that's totally ask the Ethiopians about that.
Yes.
And Ethiopia also the Ethiopians also aligned with the Crusader states at various times.
Yeah, I mean, anywhere that's like
they would attacking Egypt from behind, basically.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, yeah.
Yep. And
because this is Christendom versus they view it as like this could be the overthrow of Christendom.
It was enemy of my enemy, It's like these and the Muslims when they were expanding, like they were an existential threat to people.
And were they divided yet into
Zoroastrians? How well it turned out for them. I mean, Zoroastrianism was a major world religion.
Yeah, say that one more time. I kind of cut you off. Ask the Zoroastrians.
Yeah, go ask the Zoroastrians how the Muslim expansion kind of wound up for them. And it's like, well, you kind of can't because there are only like I don't even sure there's 100,000 Zoroastrians left. There's very few, and they were basically either wiped out or forcibly converted.
Can the world's, correct me, but just like for generalization for the chat, the world's first kind of proto monotheists.
Yes, they're kind of contemporary with Judaism. I don't know exactly which one comes first, but they are one of the first major monotheistic religions. They were the religion of the Persian Empire, and it was one of the dominant world religions up until the rise of
because there's no real rule for, at least for them at the time. They're not averse to conversion by force.
They treated Christians and Jews a little bit better, because they were still kind of Abrahamic. They had an Abrahamic tradition.
A people of the
book, but Zoroastrians were not treated favorably by the Muslims, and so when they conquered Persia, which they did, they conquered Sassanid Empire was the Persian Empire at the time. But the Arabs kind of conquered Persia, and they forced the Zoroastrians to either you have to pay a really high tax or convert, which basically
like a jizya.
Basically meant that they all converted. And yes, somebody pointing out the Zoroastrians that survived are the ones that basically moved to India. And there's
I thought Iran was kind of the hub.
Well, Iran, it was.
Okay.
It was historically, right? But again, Iran was that area was all conquered by the Muslims. So the Zoroastrians that survive, they are either in India. There's also apparently a group in Canada now. But they're a very closed group now. They at one point it was a major world religion. But you can't convert to Zoroastrianism. You have to be born into it.
Okay.
At this point, I think there are some sects of Zoroastrianism want to change that, but I don't think that's changed yet.
It's a good way to shrink the team, so to speak.
Yeah. And a lot of that's, I think it's reactionary from, they basically got wiped out. They went from being one of they were the dominant cultural and religious force to having nobody.
And we really can't. It's like it happened so fast. Like Islam comes to rise in mid 600s.
And Zoroastrian had been around for 1,000 years.
1,000.
Yeah, and so like nobody thought this was going anywhere. The Persian Empire, in some shape or form, had been around for thousands of years.
And then all of a sudden, just what had started as kind of like a sect in the desert just explodes in a matter of a couple centuries. Like really in a couple decades, but then it reverberates for centuries. And they got half the Western world, we could say.
Yeah, they huge swaths of territory that had been Christian lands up until that point, and then Zoroastrian lands as well, right? I mean, it was a grim time to be living in those eras.
Sure. And that's kind of the reaction to that. The elastic response to that is the Crusades in a lot of ways, right? Where it's like,
yes. And and so someone's pointing out that Ethiopia was a yes, the various kind of Ethiopian kingdoms were one of the kind of Christian kingdoms that and they held off the kind of Muslim expansion for a long time.
Well, thanks a lot, Ethiopians. I love your coffee.
No, really, yeah. And the Crusades were part of the reason. Part of what allowed them to do that is the Crusades kind of the Crusades really put a halt on the expansionism, and it really kind of forced them for even a couple hundred years to have to reconsolidate their power, and it by the time they kind of pushed out again, they either the Mongols had already had come at that point, and and they had to fight off the Mongols, and then or just Europe had advanced enough that they were able to kind of put up a fight.
And so for the first couple, sounds like maybe centuries of the Crusades, it's just about kind of holding them at bay. They're not even really taking tons of territory.
Now, after their territory does not expand after the First Crusade.
Wow.
They don't really not in any kind of meaningful way. I think there's skirmishes and like small exchanges, but their borders do not. Their borders basically steadily shrink from the First Crusade on.
Yeah, that rate of expansion is effectively kind of halted and contained after the First Crusade.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
And it did kind of it also allowed while the Crusades are going, you have the Reconquista in Spain.
I was just going to ask about that.
Which was kind of going on at the same time. So this allowed the Spanish kings and the Spanish and Portuguese kings to basically push the Muslims out of Spain and reconquer Spain, which that would not have probably happened if not for the Crusades.
And in many ways, I mean, like, who knows how the new world, quote unquote, would have been founded, and I can't think of a kinder term than infiltrated right now, but the Reconquista gave birth to the conquistadors. Like that's what shaping of the new world.
And those were heavily influenced by kind of there were crusading orders that were basically created to fight in the Reconquista. Right. And that's what the conquistadors kind of are, the evolution of those groups, of knights who were founded to fight against the Muslims.
Which is a whole nother rabbit hole. And it's like, but it does really help you to understand the conquistadors came from centuries of martial lineage. Like these guys had been soldiers and they had been fighting men for centuries. So especially from these particular regions in Spain, they were all fired up and ready to go to the New World. They'd heard nothing but stories of fighting the Moors and the Muslims for centuries. They were just like down to go, and very very militarily astute because they had just been doing this for.
And you had the like after the Crusader states fall, you eventually wind up with the Ottoman Empire, which is what ends up taking Constantinople eventually,
and lasts till World War I.
Yes, yeah, and the Ottoman Empire at that point, at its height, controlled all of Turkey, Greece, Northern Africa, Egypt, the Holy Land, modern day Iran, and Iraq. Like just huge swath of territory up into like Pakistan and India. And they if you could have had it not been for the Crusades, it is very possible that empire would have emerged 200 years prior to when it did.
Sure.
And had it done that, they could have just taken all of Europe. They tried it as it was. They tried, and barely got beaten back.
And it's just that is like, well, there's just like that butterfly effect of history where it's like, yeah, this all kind of and the Crusades shaped the Holy Land, which by and large shapes our political and geopolitical reality today. And it's like, just to understand the Crusades is, I think, critical in understanding where you are on the historical map, and understanding theology. I think it helps a lot, and in understanding,
because it did kind of the Crusades are one of the things that kind of solidifies the divide between the Eastern Orthodox and the Roman Catholics. The Fourth Crusade ends with the sack of Constantinople.
It's just a disaster. It's a disaster.
And
Constantinople is a disaster.
The Venetians are kind of the great villains of the medieval world.
And could you explain a little bit of, even especially from the Orthodox view, Constantinople, like what happened at Constantinople?
Well, yeah. So the Fourth Crusade, again, they symbol, like, this is another attempt to kind of retake the whole. At this point, by the time the Fourth Crusade happens, they Saladin had already retaken the Holy Land and driven most of the Crusaders out. So there's an attempt to kind of go retake the territory. So they assemble some lords, assemble army, and the Venetians say, "Hey, we'll ferry you to and the Venetians Venice is a rising power in that day, and their big rivals though are not the Arabs, but the Turks, are the Byzantines."
Okay,
and so they convince these Crusader lords to, like, well, we'll ferry you to the Holy Land, but first you got to do some things for us. And so they I can't remember where they first send them, but they basically at a certain point, even these Crusader lords get excommunicated, and at that point they're like, okay, well, whatever now. So the Venetians convinced them to go sack Constantinople, which they do. They briefly establish. They establish kind of a pseudo Crusader state in Constantinople, which the Byzantines eventually retake. So
when sacking of Constantinople is the Crusader forces going into Constantinople and unaliving Christians and everybody.
They take it. They kill the emperor at the time. And I mean, it was bad, and it was bad.
And if you get into any discussion between the Eastern Orthodox and the Catholics today, Constantinople will come up.
Yeah, it basically, post the Fourth Crusade, talks of kind of reunification really start to slow down.
They're just like, guys,
and there are to this day there are Greeks who are bitter about that.
Absolutely. And like, we're not trying to trivialize, like, this is as bad as you can imagine it being. All of the unaliving and the great.
Yes, somebody is correct here. That part of what led to the sack of Constantinople was that a Byzantine royal who wanted the throne for themselves let them into the city.
Yes. He's like, if they take everybody out, then I'll be able to take over.
And I don't even think he got his throne in the end. I think they killed him, but
man, live by the sword, die by the sword.
But it's yes.
Let's check the chat real quick. I'll see. We got quite a few in here. Let's see. Hey, what's up, Indian Wildcat? What's up, bro? Let's see. I got lost on where I was. Boy, there's quite a few.
Does it not show the chat if you've got it on full screen or something? Because I had to like minimize it to have the chat show up.
Minimize. I can see the chat. There's just quite a few of them in here, so I'm sifting through which ones have questions or comments. Tactics are like managing individual battles, and strategy is the overall picture. Yes, sir. That's right, Theo.
If y'all were Crusaders, what weapons would y'all use? Boy, I mean, I'm partial to the halberd myself. Partially because of my size. It's kind of a good pole arm, of some kind. You wouldn't have had halberds in the way we understand them now in this period of the Middle Ages, but some kind of pole arm.
I'd have to go a classic like sword and shield combo, because I can pimp the shield out, and I can I could sell the shield. I could sell ad space on the shield and like make a little scratch while, you know what I mean? I'm just thinking here. Let's see. The Knights Templar were heavily armored warriors and armed to the teeth. Dog soldiers were light cavalry type like the Turks. Yes, I mean, like, I'm not saying that the dog soldiers had the same fighting style or armaments. I'm just saying their commitment, where it's like, it's victory or death. Like, we're not
committed up to fighting to the death, right?
And their whole the Templars weren't like guys who were soldiers who like were down to fight. They were monks. Like, they adhered to the fasts. I believe they were vegetarian. I think they fasted every day like monks did. They were chaste. Like, they didn't have wives. They didn't have property. They had to sacrifice property to join the Templars. They were the real deal. Like, eventually, like with anything else, bad actors can,
And one of the things that kind of happens with the Templars is because of they end up accumulating a massive amount of wealth. They create kind of a pseudo banking system to kind of fund the campaigns in the Holy Land.
And they to join, they accumulated that wealth because, like, to join, you had to
surrender your property and such, and so over time, there's some corruption that does seep into, and there's also a lot of envy on behalf of Western kings who are not as rich as some of as the Templars are.
Oh yeah, and that's
what ends up happening is they get
the King of France.
King of France gets angry and
kicks them all out except the two leaders he burns at the stake.
And they see ADC. So he also was in debt to them a lot too, because they gets rid of his debts, right?
And it's I've thought the same thing, and they're a net positive and often kind of castigated in an unfair light because of if a lot of the rumors in history, they're oftentimes started by a person's enemies.
Yes.
So when they're just like, oh, this guy was, I'm trying to think of something not too objectionable, but he was stealing money from his mom's purse. It's like, well, if your enemy was saying that, then like, man, maybe he's making it up.
Yes. What order of Crusaders would y'all join? That's a good one too. I like that. I see. I would say that because of my good old German roots, I would be a Teutonic Knight.
Oh, very cool. Yeah. Can you explain what the Teutonic?
So the Teutonic Knights were another crusading order, but they were primarily made up of people from the Holy Roman Empire, so Germans and other kind of. The idea of Germans and Germany didn't
really exist
at this point, but they were peoples of the Holy Roman Empire. And while they did have forces in the Holy Land, they were predominantly engaged fighting against the Lithuanians. The Lithuanian Crusade.
They were like the holdouts, right? They would not convert. Like Lithuania was the last one.
Was the last of the pagan kingdoms, and it was eventually there was a crusade called against them, and that was where the Teutonic Knights go and fight them, and they establish basically what ends up becoming Prussia.
Like Eastern Europe, kind of in between Germany and Russia,
and the kind of the nation of Prussia, which is the nation that eventually conquers Germany, and
it was kind of interchangeable for a while.
Becomes modern Germany is Prussia, but the kind of origins of Prussia are where a bunch of the Teutonic Knights settled, and Teutonic Knights did have the kind of if you see the kind of winged helmets, that's a Teutonic Knight thing.
And they had to battle on the ice, right? Like they had some kind of battle
against the Russians, against Alexander Nevsky. Was the battle on the ice, which I can't remember. It's Lake Volga. Was it Volga? I don't remember.
I think that is right. Yeah, I watched a video on it not too long ago. But you're right. They had probably the best drip. I would go, honestly, I think I'd go Hospitallers because it's maybe I can't say the order right, but I admire what they did.
Yes, and there were also a lot of smaller and
there's several many
crusading orders too, a lot of minor orders as well.
I've read there was even an order of lepers.
I'm not sure about that, but that would not surprise me.
It would kind of make sense because you're like, well, you guys all just kind of stay here,
yep,
and we'll be over here. But Let's keep checking here. We got quite a few chats. We have a $20 super chat, super sticker from Julie Nelson, 8230. Oh, wow. Thank you very much. If you guys know the rules with super chats, if you have any propaganda that you would like me to spread, just let me know in the chat. I'm happy to do that as long as it doesn't violate YouTube's terms of service. The Templars gained knowledge of Atlantis. Do you have anything to say to that? It's from Bama Deanna.
Yeah, I'll Atlantis is. I will say Atlantis is one of the great unsolved mysteries of the ancient world.
Sure.
And one that that maybe we will have a solution to where the legends of Atlantis come from someday, but we don't currently. I've heard many different theories, and it's too hard to say. I will say that I am kind of. I am in the group of people who believe that it's quite possible that human civilization actually goes back further than about 5,000 years.
Sure.
Maybe 8,000, even 10,000 years. But there was something that kind of happened that there was a reset on civilization that sent kind of people wandering again. And one of the things that you see in the very early civilizations is a lot of them have records and kind of stories about the civilizations that preceded them, that had kind of these advanced technologies or advanced civilizations that for some reason were destroyed. This is where a lot of times this is where flood stories come in mythology. I was just going to ask, yeah. Is there's a growing amount of people in the kind of in historian circles and archaeological circles that are kind of lending credence to the idea that there could have been civilizations beyond older than 5,000 years old, but it's hard to say because there are certain sites too that seem to confirm it, like Göbekli
Tepe, yeah. And we've talked about the Nephilim before. There's evidence for that. There's a lot of stuff that we don't know.
There is, and there's a lot of at a certain point, it's kind of hard. You don't have you're piecing through scraps to try to piece together a story.
Sure.
And we just don't have it. I mean, I'd love to see more archaeology done in Göbekli Tepe, which for those of you who don't know is an archaeological site in Turkey, which I think for various reasons is currently not being excavated. But one of the things about it is it carbon dates to something like 8,000 years old.
Something that just doesn't make sense with the current timeline.
It doesn't make sense that how they could have had the kind of cities and settlements. It defies our previous understanding of the origins of civilization. Someday that will hopefully be excavated. I think the kind of surface level reasoning for why it hasn't been so far is because they don't feel like they have the technology to do it without destroying it all.
Oh, so it's not like a political reason. It's like we just don't want to mess it up.
It's hard to say. It's hard. It's also the Turks are not necessarily big on letting archaeologists come in and do stuff in Turkey.
Not necessarily. Yeah, they're not super psyched on that.
They're not. You start poking around in archaeological sites, you start asking questions about our own history that we don't want to acknowledge.
Listen, bro, we got enough problems. Yeah.
I think the Turks to this day deny the Armenian genocide. I mean,
a little bit. We got to watch the G word. I know that on YouTube. I think it's that bad.
Really? This is literally a historic event that happened.
I know. I've seen people have problems with it. Whatever. We're fine.
All right. The Armenian incident. I don't want to say that, but
I think we have to say G side. Yeah, that's what Xavier was getting on my case. And I was like, we have to talk like this, or YouTube throws a fit. Our benevolent overlords at
hopefully those of you who overlook my use of the G word.
I don't care. Doesn't bother me. I mean, the actual event bothers me, but not the actual saying of the word. It's totally fine.
Yeah. The Turks to this day deny that happened.
Well, they're not super keen to say that it did happen.
The Japanese are more honest about their history than the Turks are.
And that's that's not great. That's not the standard that you want to set yourself to.
It took the Japanese a lot of time before they acknowledged some of the stuff that they did in their expansion era leading up to World War
Nanking
II.
and in the Philippines, etc.
Yeah, they did some or the taking of basically sex slaves in Korea. That was pretty bad.
That's not good. Okay, that's
No.
not good. I don't like that. I don't like that at all. But I love my Forerunner. I'm gonna tell you that right now.
Yeah,
The Japanese make a good car.
look, I'm kind of a Japanophile too.
I've become one. Yeah.
you know, but I can at least be honest about their history.
Listen, I might need to buy a Forerunner again, so I don't want to give the Japanese too hard of a time. But yes. Oh, let's see. Bama Deanna says they did not follow traditional Christianity. I was interested to see what you thought about this, Bama Deanna. So let me know what you mean by that in the chat. Let's see. Chatting was held 16 years in Saladin prison. Do you know what that means? The king needed Chatillon because he was a great warrior. Oh, Chatillon was held 16 years in Saladin's prison. Is that right?
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
I'd have to look that one up actually to be sure of that. But yeah, there were I am not saying Renaud de Chatillon did not have reasons for his aggression towards Islam.
Right. Yeah.
I am saying that it was a problem for the Crusader states that he was so aggressive, because he and those like him severely overestimated their ability to defend themselves against a united Islamic threat.
Which, if there's one thing that you don't want to do, it's that. If you don't want to overestimate something, it's your ability to defend yourself.
Yeah, and we'll see that we'll see what happens in the movie, right? Because
this is such a great setup for the movie. Yeah, I feel primed to watch the movie now.
Putting my pillows on my back. Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. We'll go a couple more minutes. We'll finish out some of these chats here, and then we'll go about our night. Everybody can go study on the Crusades a little bit more. The Kidder fight. I don't know that one. What's up? No one Celtic fan. I'm going to write that down though, because I do not know the Kidder fight. Thank you much. I get a lot of subject suggestions on the live stream. Let's see. I like the slap. Indian Wildcat says, I like the slap in the face when they were knighted. I do too. That's kind of.
I do. Yes. You see that in some kind of not all of the. There's not a universal like ritual for knighting somebody. It depends on the era and the organization, the kind of the time period. But some of them do at the include you at the very end you take a blow with the idea that this is the last blow that you'll ever take without answering it.
Which is, I kind of dig that.
I'm a bit of a romantic when it comes to the Middle Ages. By my own admission,
it's a very romantic era. It's hard not to be, regardless. Honestly, whether you're looking at this through the prism of Christianity or let's say Catholicism, Orthodoxy, being an agnostic history fan, or through Islam, it is a very, very romantic era. It would have been terrible to live through, but it's hard not to romanticize it when you're reading it in your head.
It's the same kind of, I think, sentiment people have about the kind of the Old West, right?
100%. Yeah.
Is why it gets romanticized in the same kind of ways.
It's a lot of the virtues that we want to cultivate and demonstrate in our day-to-day lives is like we can consolidate that into the figure of a knight or a cowboy or what have you. They're very similar figures.
Yes, they are in a lot of ways, and down to the horse and the spurs on your heels, right?
Except cowboys aren't monks, I'll tell you that. Let's see. Indian Wildcat asks, I'm a Christian, but this might be interesting to address. I'm a Christian, but as a native, it's confusing. If you were not a Christian, you deserve to be unalived because you were considered an infidel. That's a little misguided, right? Like that's not like, you can look at the conquistadors, like they weren't unaliving people because they weren't Christian. They were interested in conversion. So their theological worldview didn't mean that they could unalive you because you weren't Christian.
Well, the initial kind of conquests of Mexico, the area that kind of because Central South America,
sure,
there was actually a lot less missionary focus It wasn't until you get the occurrence of the
Virgin
Virgin
of
of Guadalupe,
Guadalupe.
where there becomes a concerted effort to kind of convert the native population.
Yeah,
So
I
they
should
can
qualify that with
go
in
on
a lot of these accounts, you will see the conquistadors wanting to just this is true. You want to see the conquistadors repeatedly say, we want to unalive everybody in this village, and then their priest says, you guys, you can't do that, and so they kind of back off a little bit.
Yeah, and it was the same. It was the Christians missionaries were a lot of time, the kind of attempted to be the bulwark between the native populations that
Yes.
had converted and the whatever group that was oppressing them. The same thing happened in when what's his name, Jackson wanted to drive the Cherokee out, right?
Yes. The
Uh,
Seminole as well.
yeah, and it was the Christian missionaries who kind of filed suit on behalf of the Cherokee.
They
to try
kind
to
of
stop it. Yeah,
they kind of had
because
the agency to do so.
yeah, well, there were some of these tribes which had converted to Christianity,
Sure.
at this point, and they had been Christian for generations at this point.
And I think a lot of people overestimate the role that race played at the time. It was more theology. It was more like, well, is this person of the same faith as me? Is this person a Christian? It wasn't so much the color of their skin as it was like, are they a heretic or are they not?
Yes, and it was a and that's the kind of it's funny for all that people kind of tend to think about the Middle Ages as a very violent time. It's actually most of Europe throughout the Middle Ages is much more peaceful than the centuries both preceding and after it. You actually get a kind of once Christianity becomes the kind of dominant cultural and religious force at play in the West, it actually puts a stop to a lot of the tribal conflicts.
Yeah.
Whereas prior to that, you would have basically vendettas between peoples and tribes.
Hatfields and McCoys,
generations,
100%. Yeah, absolutely.
And Christianity had the novel idea. It's like, no, we are all brothers and sisters in Christ, and Christ through his death, paid for all of these blood debts.
It is unspeakably novel. Like nothing like that had even occurred to them.
Yeah, but people embraced it too, and it was the spread of Christianity was. It's interesting when you compare the spread of Christianity to the spread of Islam, and the spread of Islam, of course, is predominantly done through conquest. A bunch of these fanatics descend out of the Arabian Peninsula and just conquer everybody, and they're good at fighting. Whereas Christianity, for its first several hundred years, was outlawed.
Yeah, it was,
and under pain of death in many cases.
Yeah.
And it still spread, and by the time even before the Roman Empire formally converts, various tribes had converted to Christianity based on the work of missionaries.
Sure.
And it's a tradition that kind of tradition of missionary work has endured in Christianity ever since. I'm not saying that like every Christian missionary is good and that every kind of thing Christian missionaries have done is good.
No,
but it was
a world changing thing. It was the biggest paradigm shift in history, be it in Europe, Africa, South America. It doesn't matter.
Very much so.
Absolutely the biggest paradigm change.
It was a massive shift in how people thought about things. And we take it for granted today, which is whether or not you're a Christian today, there's still a huge amount of our worldview in the West that was shaped by Christianity.
Sure.
And there's certain aspects of it that people today who are secular don't understand properly. Because they don't understand where it comes from.
Yep. Science is pretty much like among other things.
Yeah. Science is not, the origins of kind of scientific theory and such may have started in kind of classical Greece, but they were hindered by the religions of their time, and even like Socrates addresses this in the Apology, right?
I'll take your word for it.
Yeah. Where basically, you can't have a ordered universe in a polytheistic world because the gods are too chaotic.
Yeah, how could you?
And if the gods are you can't have a universal morality in a polytheistic world because what's good by Zeus might be evil by Hera,
Absolutely.
And creates this kind of
those are diametrically opposed. There's no way for that to coexist, and it creates kind of a cultural schizophrenia.
And the earlier Greek philosophers, many of them were even pointing this out before the rise of Christianity.
Because they're super smart. It's like, yeah, if you really sit and think about it, that's the only conclusion to arrive to.
There are some places in Greece today, and I will neither endorse nor condemn this view, but there are some places in Greece today where they've created icons of like Plato, Socrates, and Aristotle.
You gotta be careful, but yeah, I get it. Yeah.
But there are some places that think of them as like pre-Christian saints because they may have been pagan and lived in the pagan world, but they kind of paved the way for the rise of Christianity.
But the world they lived in they just basically was turned on its head with this spread of this one idea. And then they really, with the crusade, they saw that all, they didn't see it, but over the course of centuries, over the course of 11 centuries or so, by that time, 10, basically 11 centuries.
The Crusades highlights both the good and the bads of Christianity. It really does.
Yeah, it really does. That's why it's so important.
It's it is a very much it's why it's such a fascinating era of history to discover. I appreciate the people who are happy with me here. I'm glad to be here too.
Oh man, dude, everybody's been waiting, and I've been. You know what it was, guys? It's my fault as usual, because I didn't know how to do this dual stream. But now that we've got it, you can ask Sam. Earlier this afternoon, I was like cussing.
Yeah, we were testing earlier.
I was trying to get it figured out, but we got it. This is a small miracle. There's like Baldwin overtaking Saladin, and then this stream actually working. They're very, very close in how miraculous they are. Like somebody actually mentioned armadillos can transmit.
Yes, that is a weird fact to know, but I also have heard that before. Yes, armadillos can transmit leprosy. That they get it. They don't like. I don't think they suffer the symptoms of it for whatever reason. They can contract and transmit leprosy.
I got armadillos all over my apartment complex right now too. So
that's one of the reasons why you should not interact with armadillos.
Fear not! I would never interact with an armadillo.
There are probably many other diseases that they also carry.
I'm not anti-dillo, but man,
I have only seen a live armadillo once.
Really? You lived in Texas for how long?
You see them dead on the side of the road all the time.
True, yeah.
They're not very smart animals. That's why they have armor. That's how they survive.
I don't know what the term for a group of armadillos is. If it's like, I guess it'd be armadillos, but I see groups of them all throughout my complex. Like if I go out, what time is it? It is 8:45. So yeah, it's dark. If I go outside right now, there will be armadillos out there.
That was when I saw one. I was coming home late one night, and I in my condo complex there was an armadillo that's scurrying past me. That's part of why you don't see them is they're nocturnal too. It's just like you don't.
That's my granddad used to go over and stay at my grandma and granddad's. I was from California, and I'd go there in the summer and stay there in Texas. And I'd be sleeping in the middle bedroom, and then I'd hear the door open, and my grandpa would just wake up at random times in the night, and then I'd hear the door close, and then I'd hear bam, 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 and he was going like full metal jacket on the armadillos, and he'd just go back in, go to bed. It was just like what he did, and it took a little used to.
Yes, for anybody who is listening, do not ever handle or eat an armadillo.
Don't do it, you guys. If we have to tell you that, I'm severely disappointed in you. Yeah. But please don't do it.
They are not fit for human handling or consumption.
That is the official HOKC.
They carry a lot of diseases and such. Would be very bad.
Let's see. 13. Okay, got that. Somebody said something else in here. Bama Deanna says, talk to a psychic, a remote viewer, or astral travel. I'm gonna. You know me, Bam and Deanna. You know that freaks me out. Let's see. if we got that. The Book of Enoch is from Ethiopia. How do you feel about the Book of Enoch?
Oh boy, that's a complicated. That is a complicated topic.
Oh, I didn't
And
realize that.
I'm not sure.
kind
I'm
of
not
did.
sure we want to get into that one. That's a the. So the Book of Enoch is what's known as a pseudepigraphal text. Pseudepigraphal.
Pseudepigraphal.
It's not apocryphal. It's not part of the apocrypha. Some Bibles included in the apocrypha, but it is not typically included.
The apocrypha meaning the whole collection.
Meaning the expanded kind of works that not every book, not every group agrees on what book should be in the Bible and what shouldn't. And so there's a collection of books called the Apocrypha, which are like Job is in the Apocrypha. A couple, I believe, there's a bunch of like some smaller books in the Old Testament that not every group accepts as part of the Bible. A lot of the reasons behind that, and the same reason with the Book of Enoch, is that its origins are a little bit like we don't know exactly when it was written or who wrote it. Because there was periods of time. Some of these are from periods of time when the Jews were kind of in exile.
Okay.
So the Book of Enoch is referenced by Christ and the disciples, like in the like you could find references to the Book of Enoch in the Gospels and in the by the disciples in later writings. It was clear. It was a very prominently read and discussed text during the time of Christ. But it's not typically included in the Bible. I think yes, the Ethiopians do. I believe the Russians sometimes do too.
Really?
Yes. Yeah. The Russians are into that kind of thing. And there's some kind of like there's a lot of as far as kind of what's canonical in the Book of Enoch, it's hard to say. It depends on what denomination you're part of. I think both Catholics and Orthodox typically accept certain parts of it and certain kind of things that are taught in the Book of Enoch as part of canon, but it's not. But there's other parts where it's kind of more. It's hard to say.
I think Elite Supergrunt is a trad cath, right? Are you trad Catholic, Elite Supergrunt? I think so, right? You say this, Volt. Let me see.
So there's some things that come out of like the Book of Enoch. So one of the kind of prominent things that people you might have heard is that the idea that the reason for the flood was to wipe out the Nephilim. That comes from the Book of Enoch.
Oh, okay, all right.
And that's not it because that's not in Genesis.
I just thought it was.
No, yeah. I think people tend to think it is, but no, it's actually I think that comes from the Book of Enoch. I believe. I'm not 100% sure on that one, so somebody might need to look it up on me. But yes, but the Book of Enoch, as I said, was a text that is very much during the time of Christ was very widely talked about and very widely discussed and written about. Like as I said, there's I can't give you exact quotes where in the Bible that Christ is referencing.
But they do reference it.
He does reference it.
I didn't know that.
He does reference it, and so do some of the apostles in their writings, because there was a text that people knew about. Part of the kind of another reason like why some of these texts are not included in the Bible is some of them did not survive in their entirety. Some of them only survived in fragments, and some of them were we didn't know about it. We knew that they existed, but they weren't found until much later.
Oh, so we know there's X book out there, but we ain't got it, so we can't put it in the canon.
Who wrote stuff? The Qumran Caves discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls was one of the greatest archaeological discoveries of
1940s. Is that right?
That's one of the. I got to see it when I went to Houston. They had it at the Museum of Natural Science there, on tour there. It was so remarkable to see.
Did you snag a little piece to take it home?
No, I did not.
Oh man,
it would have been very, very illegal.
true. Okay, yeah.
But it was so remarkable to see. I was one of the greatest historic archaeological discoveries of
And like it blows my mind. It's 80 years ago. Like it's not like, oh, it was found.
Well, it took a long time. The process of unraveling them and like to be able to so they could be looked at and deciphered takes a long time because
they're in scrolls, right? So it's like you have to.
But they're ancient. So the problem is they'll crumble.
I was gonna say they crumble.
Crumble if you're not extremely careful. So there's a process which basically very slowly over months and years, by which they unfolded them.
Whoa.
And so it's like it took a long, like they had the discovery, but it took a long time to kind of
see what they said,
see what it said, right? And it was but yeah, I mean, great, and there's certain texts that we may discover someday that have been lost.
But you got to work with what you got, right?
This isn't an Old Testament text, but there was an early Christian writing from like the 3rd century called the Didache, which is referenced by many later Christian authors, but we for a long time we didn't have a copy of it anymore.
It just disappeared. Okay, I didn't know that. Okay,
lost history, and it was referenced all the time by the early Christian fathers, but they didn't.
So you see it in their writings. Oh, the Didache says this. The Didache says that.
There was I think sometime in the 1900s. It might have been in the 1900s or it might have been the 1800s. There was basically a cave-in in a library somewhere in Turkey, and they found a copy of it.
Fortuitous.
Yes, and up before that, we did not actually have. It had been lost to history. And the Didache is basically it's a really interesting document because it talks about it's kind of a prescribing an order for the daily life of Christians in the 3rd century.
Oh wow!
So it's really interesting. It talks about the like how Christians were supposed to live, and it's a 3rd century text. Like it is written basically in the originally in the media. I think it goes back before the 3rd century. I think the 3rd century is going to when we know.
It illuminates the early Christian church.
It illuminates what the very earliest Christians how they were practicing their faith, which is really interesting. So.
And it only took a cave-in a library. You know how those Turkish libraries are, though.
Yeah. Well, and the Turks are not. Again, the Turks are not.
Up. We've done enough Turk bashing for tonight. We're gonna have people show up at the door. I'm just kidding. Say what it is.
Well, they're things will change, and it's time is sometimes is the great obscurer, but it's also the great revealer.
Yeah, it's a revealer.
So we'll see.
Well, let's see what else we got here. Let me know what you think. Let us know what you think about the Book of Enoch, Elite Super Grunt. Let's see. Josh McAllister says, I'd have to carry a mace or the one thing with a ball and chain on a stick. What is it again?
Flail.
Okay, I knew. I was trying to think of that name too. Okay, it's called a flail. Got it. You're a flail man, Josh McAllister. Right on, bro. Me,
I like flails too.
I'm kind of basing it off, I think, my favorite Ninja Turtle. I know Leonardo didn't have a shield, but he had the 2 swords, so I'm going to go 1 sword with the shield. I feel like it'd be swaggy. Let's see. I saw something the other day. I saw something the other day hypothesized that Zoroastrians were the base and the creators for Druids. Any take on that?
I have not heard that. No, and I don't think that's true because Druidism comes out of the Celtic traditions in the kind of the people think of the Celts as being British and like Irish and such, but the Celts
they're not, huh?
No, they're not.
Yeah,
and that was one of the areas they settled, but the Celts during the kind of late classical era and the early Roman era they were a group that had basically spread throughout much of Europe and even into Asia. Galatia was a basically means Gaul. Like, it's like Gaul of the East, you know.
Oh, Gaul. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Galatia basically just means Gallia, right? You know, but it was just kind of,
and that's who Paul's writing to.
yeah. Now,
Okay.
like at that period of time, that the kingdom that was Galatia had been kind of integrated into the Roman Empire.
Okay.
But
that makes a lot of sense. It's a Gaul of the
there were,
East. Okay.
yeah, it was
Visigoth, Ostrogoth, that kind of
it started with it was a group of Galatians, a group of Gauls that had
Gauls. Huh?
migrated
Yeah.
that far in. The Celtic migrations kind of spread throughout much of Europe, and then they eventually get kind of confronted with the Roman Empire, and the Romans end up killing a lot of them. And then
I think of them as like European Aztecs, basically. Like they're just
they are in many ways the precursor to a lot of European civilizations. And there's like remnants of them still left, right? So druidism was kind of their religion, and they had a pantheon of gods they worshipped, and druids were the kind of priests of basically of their religion. Involved a lot of human sacrifice, and stuff. Which to be fair, most religions
did, yes, but it's like, guys, I don't know why we keep. I understand that you want to make the greatest. The rationale behind it is that we must make the most costly sacrifice to ourselves to elicit the greatest appeasement from our gods. But it's like, do we all have to end up here every single time the road goes to human sacrifice? Like, try something different.
Very common in the ancient world.
Let's see. Ethiopia was a major kingdom that held off the Muslims for over 1,000 years, says Mark Kavitsky. Let's see. Let's see. The Ottomans made major inroads against Europe. Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah. Maybe in a future episode we could talk about like the Battle of Lepanto, or some others that happened.
That's an intense one. All of these are just, when they're broken down into their component parts and kind of looked at granularly, it's like, man, this is some of the craziest stuff. Truly, some of the craziest stuff that's ever happened in world history, and maybe the most consequential stuff up to like the world wars, or at least the Napoleonic Wars, where it's like there was nothing as correct. I'm just hypothesizing here, but it's like
the wars between Christianity and Islam were kind of were the dominant conflict of the age. They
shaped everything. We're still dealing with it.
No, we still are. That's the United States is first war that we ever declared after becoming a nation. Was against the Barbary states, Barbary Corsairs,
and as I think
founding of the Marine Corps.
It's a justifiable one because what they were doing was horrific. It's just
taking slaves.
If you want a really good book, I've talked about that. You probably read this one, but I've talked for the chat. I've talked about this. It's called Sands of the Sands of the Sahara. It's a really good book on the Arab slave trade, and it's one of the few history books I've had to put down while reading and think like, I need a break from this because it's just so.
The Arab, as much as the transatlantic slave trade gets talked about, there's really not as many people who know about or talk about the Arab slave trade, which was going on at the same time and actually lasted much longer, and was going on much before that too.
Yep.
Where they took a lot of people out of Africa as slaves. And now the reason you don't have
let them know
native populations of Africans in those areas is because they captured all of them.
That is right. It is. So, it's like, that almost sounds like that can't be true. It is actually what happened.
So the Turks the Ottomans were some of the worst at this. If you've ever read Game of Thrones and you've seen like the Unsullied, the castrated slave soldiers of Game of Thrones, right? That comes from real history. That was what the Janissaries were.
The Janissaries, absolutely. Were
castrated slave soldiers.
You know what? I'm gonna look through the chat for another one. Can you explain what the Janissaries were?
So the Janissaries or the Janissaries, they were the Turkish slave soldiers. They're similar in some ways to the Mamluks, but they were the Turkish kind of version of that. And what they would do is when the Turks conquered new areas, they would take all the boys under a certain age out of these areas. They would, captured Christian boys for the most part. and they would castrate them, force them to convert to Islam, and then use them as slave soldiers.
And it's a regular, it's almost an industry, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah. And yes, many died in the procedure.
Yeah.
And it was horrific. And so
it's
this
not,
kind of this contextualizes why people were so afraid of the Turks.
yeah, they weren't just stories either.
That was not the same as being conquered by other by other groups, because it meant your wives get sold into slavery, and so do your children. Right?
It's total warfare.
It was bad. And they there's lots of stories about the horrible things the Janissaries did and what were done to them. It was a cycle of really horrific abuse that continued.
And it continued on. It was something similar taking place in specifically Italy, France, with the castrati, which became, this is hundreds of years after the Crusades, but like there was a whole industry of sorts around preserving, preserving.
You can still find, you could find online the recordings of the there are still recordings of like the last castrati, whoever.
I forget his name, but if you guys really want, it's chilling to hear it. Yeah, it's very, it is.
It's a voice that's not quite male, but not quite female.
Exactly.
And
it's very, you can tell that it's a trained voice, and it's doing exactly I mean, in the sense of the voice is doing what it's been trained to do. It's not that it's a bad singing voice, but it's eerie.
It's eerie because it doesn't develop the same way as a typical male.
And his whole life was shaped around shaping that voice to be
somebody here in the chat. Sorry, I go change the subject. Vlad the Impaler knew how to handle the Turks.
Vlad was down, dude.
Vlad Tepes, man. I tell you what, you ever want to piss off a Romanian, you talk about Dracula, right? They get really offended by that.
He's almost a saint to them, right? Not Dracula, but Vlad.
I think the Romanians do consider him a saint.
He's a saint, yeah. Because he stopped the Ottoman invasion. Like who, I don't know who said that in the chat, but it's like, and I think a lot of that
he held the line against the Ottomans.
And a lot of the stories about him are written again by his enemies. We're like, oh, the stories about his kind of like the blood, dipping his bread in the blood of his enemies. That literally comes from a time when he was imprisoned by the Hungarians and was propaganda put out by the Hungarians. I think it behooves any history fan to think about logistics, where it's just like, do you understand how hard?
Yeah. And what's his name who wrote Dracula?
Bram Stoker.
Bram Stoker. He either didn't know or didn't care about that.
I think he's a good old Irishman and didn't care. I think he's just an Irishman trying to make a buck.
Now, I will say that if you go visit Romania today and you go to Transylvania, there are 100% tourist attractions. They're designed to take your money by promoting Dracula, right? Whatever.
It'd be like if Davy Crockett was a contentious character and you came here and were like, listen, you can feel however you want about Davy Crockett, but why don't you buy a hat? Like, just buy the hat.
And they'll gladly take the money of Westerners, but if you talk to them like personally, like they hate it.
Yes.
This guy is their biggest national hero.
It'd be the same as he is he's their George Washington. Like it is.
Oh yeah. I mean, he is one of the foundational figures to what kind of creates the modern country of Romania, right? And the Kingdom of Wallachia, which was what they had was before, right? I mean, it was
Wallachia.
Wallachia. Yeah,
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah,
and he kind of he just makes that possible by stopping the Turks. Like
and again, the Turks were, and he had been a hostage in the Turkish court for his childhood, right? So I
was going to say like a hostage exchange program, right?
Yeah. And that's a very common practice is in order to kind of keep them from, keep their vassals loyal, right? You send your children to go be raised in the court. The
Romans did it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Japanese did it later too. I mean, it's not even just a European thing. This is just a very common.
It's very practical though. It puts you in a standoff.
If your father rebels, we get to kill your hostages.
It's
and so
Oh, we got a $20 super chat from Terry R. Great discussion. Oh, thank you very much, Terry R. Appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Very generous of you.
And it was a, but yeah, he had seen firsthand the kind of brutality the Turks had done, and when he comes back in power, like he says, nope, we're not having Turkish soldiers on my land, so we're going to. He impaled them on the side. He impaled Turks on pikes on the side of the road. Every time he caught Turkish soldiers in his land, and that's kind of part of what kept them out of his land, because he's like, well, we don't want to mess with this guy.
And I'm not trying to be insensitive, but like, you gotta get, he had a job to do. It's like, well, you can do this. This is the one language they're going to understand.
And the alternative was, again, they come into these villages and they take old the young boys and castrate them and turn them into slave soldiers.
It's a binary proposition that I think modern people, we have a hard time understanding that level of existential
brutality
threat.
And the brutality that it takes to confront that at times.
Yeah.
You know, we just don't live in that world anymore.
Nope. We can, you can just kind of.
But that's a good segue. We should go into that world now by watching Kingdom of It.
Yeah, I'm thinking Saturday. Do you have Saturday free?
Yes, I will make time to do this.
Sam's a very talented chanter, so we'll talk about how chanting works at some point too. I don't know how you guys do that. That's very unfamiliar music to me.
Well, I've been doing it for a long time.
True, yeah, but it sounds really cool coming in. Let's see. The Second Crusade helped in what's now the Second Crusade. This is from Anno Domini. Is that Latin? 73. The Second Crusade helped in what's now Portugal. The Reconquista, along with excuse me on reading this, such a mess. The Reconquista, along with the Norman conquest of Sicily, are considered proto-crusades. Would you agree with that?
Yes, in some ways. Because the Reconquista is ongoing. I think it does start technically before the Crusades, but it's kind of an ongoing process. At the time of the First Crusade, the Moors still control most of Spain. Most of southern Spain is still owned by the Muslims.
Portugal as well.
Portugal is its own kingdom, but not all of the territory that is currently Portugal was stuff that they controlled.
Okay.
The southern part was Moorish territory still. It's kind of ongoing. The Norman conquest of Sicily. So Sicily was also a Muslim state at one point, or at least parts of Sicily. Sicily was kind of was divided into kind of different
very close to North Africa.
There were Muslim areas. There were Christian areas. There were like Catholic areas or Orthodox areas.
That's what I've read too. There was like a Jewish area. Everything kind of.
The Normans come and conquer them, and they create the kingdom of Sicily. Is actually a kind of remarkable for its time. Was a very religiously and ethnically diverse place. Is
that because of the pragmatism to it, where it's like
the Normans were not necessarily known for their religious fanaticism.
No,
they converted to Christianity, but they didn't. They were kind of like, we don't really care that much.
Yeah.
As long as you pay your taxes and don't rebel.
Yeah,
we don't really care what you do.
They weren't going to necessarily let it get in the way of conquest or raiding.
Yes, and the same thing kind of happens in the Norman conquest of England. The English king. That's why you get this kind of tradition. The English kings are not super involved in, they're not like they're not as authoritarian as certain other areas in Europe because again that's the kind of their tradition is they're much more laissez-faire with their, they don't really care what the people do as long as you pay your taxes, you don't rebel.
As long as you pay your taxes, yeah. Hey, let's see. My priest said I sound like a crusader whenever we talk about the Crusades and similar topics today. He says Elite Super Grunt. You got to take a deep breath, Elite Super Grunt.
Deus Vult, right?
Yeah, I think Deus Vult is I think Elite Super Grunt says that quite a bit. Let's see. There's an Ethiopian princess who married Solomon. What was her name? Beelzebub? Jezebel? Do you know? Really putting you on the spot there. Don't feel bad if you don't know that.
It is Jezebel, but that sounds correct. But I do not know. Do not quote me on that because that is not sure. But yes, there's an Ethiopian who marries Solomon, I believe.
We got a very interesting one here. This will be great to discuss. Anno Domini 73. Is that the year of our Lord, I believe?
Anno Domini, yeah.
Look up the massacre. He or she says, excuse me, Anno Domini. Look up the massacre of Latins, where Orthodox massacred Catholics in 1182 in Constantinople. That gives context to the 1204 sack. I don't know anything about that. I
don't either. I would have to actually look that one up as well.
Okay.
So I'm not going to make comments on things I don't know about.
We will come back to that, though.
There is a throughout this kind of period, there is a back and forth between. There's a tense relationship especially between the Italians and the Byzantines. The various Italy there was no nation that was Italy at the time, right? So that you had different city states in Italy.
It's effectively European caliphates, right?
And there was a very, for the most part, openly hostile relationship between them and the Byzantines at the time. And
is that because they're the home of the Vatican, or is that just
it partially? And they did kind of hold the various Italian city-states did kind of hold control of the papacy for most of the Middle Ages, and later too. Quite honestly,
it moved to Avignon, France, right? Like there was.
That was when you get that was one of the reasons for the Avignon papacy, right? Was because a non-Italian basically gets elected pope, and the Italians don't want to let that happen.
They don't like that,
yeah. So it's a tense relationship. There are massacres on both sides. There are other things the Venetians did to the Orthodox. So yeah, I will not hide from the fact that I'm sure there was Byzantines who persecuted Catholics.
We're not saying it's a one-sided thing. It's just it's trying to take a holistic, tri-sided view.
Yes, and there was a back and forth, and it kind of got progressively more and more violent, and the Fourth Crusade is kind of what
tipped that over.
Yes, and there were attempts at reunification, basically as a means to kind of save Constantinople in 1453, but they failed, and it's a
work in progress. We're working on it.
I dream of the day. I'm Orthodox, and I dream of the day that at the very least we can have some kind of a dialogue and as much of working together with Rome as we can.
Yeah, absolutely.
If not if not getting reunification, working towards that.
Yeah,
we should definitely be allies and not enemies. I mean, we have Christians have bigger enemies in the world. We don't need to be fighting amongst ourselves.
Couldn't agree more.
That's my personal view, but so
I think most of my very closest friends are Catholic, so I have a very soft spot.
I have friends who are Catholic too. So
let's see. Equivalent in their dedication to we got that. The dog soldiers are like the Templars in their dedication to the cause. Yeah, very true. Only they weren't monks. I would say the dog soldiers were not monks at all. They were not monks. So we talked about Porcupine Bear last night. Porcupine Bear was a dog soldier chief who got a little bit hammered and unalived his cousin, which is like, come on, lighten up. You know what I mean? People unalive cousins, it happens. But the Cheyenne threw a fit about this, and they kicked Porcupine Bear out of the tribe. But his warriors were like, listen, he's the best warrior we got. Like, we're going to go live with this guy. And so they started their own band. But the dog soldiers, they like to party. Brandon, I doubt you could pick up one of those swords. What are we talking about? Look at that. I could pick it up. Let's see. $20. I could play a Bama Deanna. Always giving me trouble. Thank you again, Julie Nelson. Really appreciate that. I saw a lot of armor at the Cincinnati Art Museum. I'd like to go see. I've never seen armor in person. There is a story of Jim Bridger. They found some, I believe, Spanish armor. Somehow a full suit of armor made it out to the Mountain Man Rendezvous one year. And Jim Bridger, a famous mountain man, like put it on. You can tell these guys just are like kind of bros. Like they're kind of just bro dudes. The mountain men are like, I'll put this on. They just like put it on, rode around. Everybody laughed at it. It was just like just having a good time. The king of the Templars had a tremendous amount of money. I'm sorry. Okay, I got this. The king of the Templars. There we go. I'm sorry. I had to suss out what this meant. The king owed the Templars a tremendous amount of money that he didn't have. Yeah, I think that's what Sam was alluding to earlier.
Yeah, he the king of France was deeply in debt to them, and his way of getting out of that debt was to use his position to have them declared heretics and then take all their money.
Which was like, I mean, it's not nice, but it didn't not work.
Yeah, no, he successfully wiped them out. The Hospitallers actually survived for much later. That the Hospitallers still survive in some fashion to this day.
Would they be like Shriners in a way?
So the Knights of St. John, it's still a chivalric order to this day.
I didn't know that.
After the Crusades, they resettle. They kind of in Malta, which is an island off of the coast of it's off the coast of Sicily, and that's their fortress. Is their kind of last remaining fortresses in Malta, and that's still where I think they're headquartered today.
It's a little tiny island. Yeah.
And they, for the most part, they don't really, they're not a crusading order anymore, but they are a chivalric order.
Well, you keep them around just in case you need them.
Order. They're recognized by the Catholic Church and such. And
are they really? Okay.
Yeah.
The Knights of Malta.
Knights of Malta.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah.
Those are the Hospitallers, right? That's that is what became of the Knights Hospitallers, right?
Because people don't understand. Like now we have hospitals, and everyone's like, "Yeah, this is my town's hospital." That wasn't a thing. Like that wasn't like you couldn't just like, oh, I'm sick, I'm going to go see a doctor. And like, you could expect to find a hospital no matter where you went. The Hospitallers set this up. They are the originators of the system that we have today.
Yeah. Cause, there was a lot of more medical knowledge survived in the East than survived in the West at the time.
Oh, I didn't think about that. Cause it's the sacking by the barbarians.
Well, yeah. The
Alaric and the Bros.
When Rome falls, right? A lot of the Roman infrastructure and knowledge just vanishes.
Yep.
Much
it's
of
like
it
the Library of Alexandria. It's just like
gone. Much of it's preserved by the monastic communities, the Christian monastics, or the kind of, and it's no accident that many of the first universities are actually founded in monasteries.
Absolutely.
So.
Breweries, bakeries, a lot of things like survive.
But a lot of the kind of other stuff just goes away, right? And the what happens in the Dark Ages and the feudal ages, in the kind of the medieval ages, right, is that when this kind of the Roman systems all kind of went away, you also had a lot of migrations of different barbarian tribes. In and out. You had like groups like the Goths and the Alani and the Vandals, many of whom themselves were migrating in, but they were fleeing from the Huns, and the Huns were brutal.
Oh, okay.
The Huns were some of the most brutal people in history.
Not very nice.
Not very nice.
No.
Attila the Hun especially was a monster.
Drank himself to death, like partied so hard that he just died.
No. So he dies of an so do you
an
know
aneurysm?
An aneurysm. Yeah, dies of a nosebleed on his wedding night. But
which is like,
it's also it's fascinating stories with him. But we can get to that one later. But it's
Sure.
So when the kind of Roman infrastructure dies, all of a sudden you don't have the legions to
protect you
anymore.
Yeah.
You don't have armies, you don't have and the rich people of the day, the rich landowners who kind of become the de facto lords, they don't have the wealth to field and equip armies. They can't, even 100 people is fielding and equipping 100 people is a lot. It takes a lot of other people have to be working in fields and in other and in like craftsman shops,
blacksmith, and
to field 100 people that are just ready to be fighting.
That's just 100 people.
Yeah. And so so we can't field 100 people anymore. We can't field 1,000 people anymore. But we can get 10 guys and give them the very best equipment that we can, and we'll train them real hard.
Yeah.
And those guys are going to be our new, and then we're going to basically form the military around them. And that's what happened. That's what knights are, right? So the origin of kind of feudalism, the feudal system, and the development of kind of knights is, okay, well, we don't have legions anymore, but we need to have a kind of a military and policing force. We got to have people to fight the brigands and the mounted and the marauding bandits and the horseman tribes, whatever.
But we've only got 10 of them.
We've only got 10 of them.
Yeah.
So what are we going to do if you're charged in the ancient world of I want the 10 guys, and I want them to be fielded and equipped and trained in the most effective fighting force possible? Well, that's mounted cavalry, shot cavalry. Shot cavalry is the dominant military force for thousands of years, going
until
back
the advent of firearms, right?
Yes, and not even just firearms, but the basically modern firearms.
Yeah, because right? there was mounted knights with guns.
Mounted combat was still a quintessential part of a Napoleonic War.
Yeah, it went into World War I pretty much.
Yes. Yeah. Even in World War II, the Poles tried to bring back, but it didn't work.
It didn't work in World War I, which always made me think, well, listen, you had a whole World War to figure out that it didn't work. Why'd you try in World War II? But you got to work with what you got.
But anyway, so yes, if you're a medieval, if you're a landowner, and you got to field 10 guys and 10 or 20 guys, like the best possible. We're going to equip them as heavy cavalry to ensure their loyalty. We're going to give them land so that they can then train other people to kind of follow after them and to like be their retainers. And so this is how you kind of get the when the Roman Empire goes away, you have the development of feudalism, which is a much more decentralized power structure because
there's no empire anymore. We have no empire.
There's no economy to support the empire. Mm-hmm. There's no conquest loot coming in to support the legions.
There are no legions.
There are no legions. And so instead we've got to have decentralized power. The way you do that is you break up the larger swaths of land and it's like, okay, this swath of land, this is your land, and you're responsible for that land, and maintaining a certain amount of fighting force. Like you have to maintain, to be a knight, right, was also to not just serve yourself in battle, but your also Lord. To provide other people. Like you would have to then, you were given land and retainers and serfs to kind of to so that you could also field a small. So the way knights fought, mounted knights, right? Not everybody who's fighting as a cavalryman is a knight.
No, huge point.
Many of them are the men at arms. We'll call men at arms, and they are the retainers of the knights who are the few knights who are kind of the officers essentially. Yeah. But they're trained and equipped in the same way, right? Sure. And to fight as
But they're not monks either, right? Like they're not required.
And most knights weren't, right? I mean, the Templar was a unique thing. The Templars were
sure. I should specify
orders
that,
were a unique thing that happens is you get this kind of fusion of kind of Christianity and
it's kind of the first time, right? Like there's not.
Yes, there are similar. There are some orders that kind of predate that, but yes, it does a lot of it comes out of the some of it comes like the ideas behind the Knights Templar come out of the writings of like Bernard of Clairvaux, who I don't know if he is a saint or not in the Catholic Church. I do not know for sure.
I want to say yes, but I probably shouldn't hazard.
I want to say yes too, but I do not know. that one for sure. But he writes a piece, that's like Nova Milites Templari, which is basically calling for a order of knights of kind of knight monks who can protect the Holy Land and protect the pilgrims, which is what happens.
And I think this is really a sticking point for a lot of people because they equate Christianity as a pacifist group, and it's like,
yes.
well, no, it's not now, and it certainly was not then. They aren't theologically required to be pacifists, and that wasn't there just wasn't a requirement they thought themselves as working under. And they had saints that were part, like Saint George, Saint Sebastian, right? Like that were they were soldiers themselves, so it wasn't looked as.
There was always this understanding that there's a time for Christians to have to engage in war, in defense of, and it's usually in defense of others, right? In defense of others, you have to do that. But yeah.
Real quick here, we got an interesting Robert Harrison. What's up, bro? A couple more. I know I said this a while ago. A couple more minutes, and we're done with the questions. What do y'all think about the Nephilim? I guess we kind of talked about it a little bit, but
oh boy.
We will be getting into that on another show, but I think like I would say is a possibility.
It's I will say that if nothing else, it was for most of history, people believed that this kind of thing existed. And I would also say that there's enough commonality in the accounts of
various sources.
In the accounts of various sources to kind of lend credence to the idea that it. Okay, so this is a complicated question. It gets into complicated answers, and it really does depend on kind of on who you're talking to. But for most of history, if you had asked people for are humans the only intelligent beings in the universe?
Yeah.
It would have been obviously the answer is no.
Right? That's a trip. Okay.
And yeah. No. The answer was no. There are other intelligences out there, whether those things are angels, demons, or something else like other
extraterrestrial. I guess
yeah,
those
not
are
not extraterrestrial, but I think more of like not extraterrestrial, like extra dimensional, right? Things that exist.
Okay, yeah, good distinction.
Things that exist on a higher kind of plane of existence in some ways than humans do, right? And so
they had a much more psychedelic view of the world than we give them credit for. That would have been
a much more common worldview for most of history. And it isn't until you get into the modern era with the kind of rise of materialism, of a materialist. And when I say materialism, I mean materialism in the philosophic sense.
Mm-hmm. Meaning what you believe in the material, what you can see.
Yeah. Only material things are real. Like there is no immaterial reality, essentially. Mm-hmm. And that everything that has everything can have a material explanation for phenomena. But that's a modern viewpoint. And I don't think it's a particularly. I think that viewpoint in general just discounts a lot of what human experiences actually are.
Absolutely.
And
it
to
skews
reduce everything to just kind of random chemical impulses in your brain is a very simplistic interpretation.
Yeah, absolutely. And it skews your view of history as well.
It does.
Even if you don't believe that, this is what they believe. This is
and so so for those of you who don't know, the Nephilim are much of what we kind of know about the Nephilim comes from the Book of Enoch as well, and it's what very little that is written about what they are. The sons of God lusted after the daughters of men. So it's basically the offspring of angels and humans, right? And there are in some of these kind of in the more ancient interpretations in both in Judaism and Christianity, there was this idea that God, that there were other kind of angels and beings in the court who were in servitude of God, and that just like people have guardian angels, nations could have guardian angels. And eventually, and over time, some of those guardian angels of nations end up being worshipped as gods of their own. And this is the ancient Christian understanding of where pagan gods come from. Is that and many of them they basically go rogue from God, right? That this was like, the guardian angel of Athens is Athena, right? But eventually people start worshiping Athena.
Just Athena, yeah.
Or that's an example, but it
kind of splinters off and then metastasizes.
And it contextualizes, like in the Old Testament, you'll hear, like in Job is the famous example of Job, like Satan is invited to this council of God. God has a council, yeah, and Satan is there, right? And what is that about? Well, it's because this idea that yes, that God, as part of the kind of creation of the world, he assigned guardians and assigned, his own ministers to kind of govern over areas of the world, and many of them kind of go for a while.
And the people at that time do not have this kind of binary understanding that we have today, where it's like, oh, we have the natural, and then we and the celestial. I guess
there was a much more there was an interconnection between them, right? And so the idea of Nephilim is the same kind of idea as demigods in the Greek kind of sense, except that at some points there were basically entire races of, like, there was enough of them that could be an entire race of demigods,
and they would have been wiped out in the flood.
And that was part in the Book of Enoch, right? The reason for the flood is because that was the reason God needed to send the flood was because it was he had to wipe out the Nephilim.
It's like if you got to unalive a bunch of really tall people, I guess the flood's probably the most
and that's where you get, like, this is one of those complicated things where like people will say, well, in the Bible, God commands the Israelites to go wipe out entire peoples, and one of the defenses of that within some Christian scholars, and I am not going to say which, if I think this is 100% right, because it's hard to say. Okay. But is that those tribes that he was telling them to wipe out were non-human tribes.
Yeah.
Were tribes of Nephilim, or the descendant of Nephilim, and that's why he was telling them to be wiped out or whatever.
So that does not equate to, hey, go wipe out Poland or something. It's like
exactly, yeah. And so it's a complicated question.
But you do believe, or you are open to their existence.
I am open to their existence. It's not an answer that we will likely ever know. We can kind of Goliath is thought to have been an Nephilim.
Yeah, that makes sense. Absolutely.
But this is kind of why you get accounts of things like demigods in various mythologies too. And there is this kind of like there's a even within like pagan cultures, there's kind of it's not like demigods are not necessarily thought of fondly,
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah,
it's like they kind of it's something there's something twisted about it.
There can be a level of like resentment towards them.
Yes, and so the Nephilim, if you believe, this is what people believe, right? Is sort of the created of this intermingling between angels and humans, and they were a twisted people. They were kind of it was not a good thing that this happened. And yes, the idea that there was the flood is to predominantly to wipe out the Nephilim. Some Nephilim may have survived, or descendants of them survived, or whatever. That's what Goliath was, or something. Yeah,
Abraham Lincoln.
And so why and why this is an explanation for why God ordered the destruction of certain tribes or whatever.
Held as like, would they be looked at just for as a contextualizing kind of analogy, would they be looked at as like a
yes.
royal class, or would they be looked at as like hillbillies?
As what?
Would they be looked at as like a royal class? Like that's something
No, they'd have been looked at as monsters.
like monsters, straight up monsters. Okay, yeah.
Like sometimes you hear them referred to as giants. Sometimes
they'd be like hills have eyes, like kind of freaky people.
Well, yeah, and that's what the idea of some of the monsters of the kind of that people have in mythology, like Cyclopses are probably kind of a similar like depiction of these things, right?
Oh, and it's me, this guy had a Nephilim with one eye.
Well, yeah. And so the Nephilim, they were not human, and their descendants were not human. They were some kind of monstrous.
Like a mule is not a horse. It's this cross between.
Yeah, they were, and so sometimes you'll see them referred to as the giants, or as the yeah, they could be cannibalistic. They were not human, and they were not friendly towards humans for the most part.
And a nice little, just a little add on to that, like we've talked about the existence of dragons before in
yes.
early history.
And that's another, like dragons are another thing that I think are probably like, we may never have definitive proof that dragons existed, but I think if you did discounting the existence of dragons is pretty like, man, you've got to say that you've got to come up with some kind of explanation for why this creature is depicted in mythologies all around the world. That's like, and there are other potential explanations for that, sure. But most of those other explanations also involve some kind of supernatural.
And like kind of Occam's razor would dictate that, like, if all these people,
yeah, if peoples from, Mesopotamia, China, Japan, India, and throughout the world and Europe, right, all have kind of depictions of that you can kind of look at and say, oh, that's a dragon. You know,
they have virtually no contact with each other. Like it's, I understand trade routes and everything, but yes, virtually no contact with each other, and they're still all drawing the same pictures.
Clearly, there's something that's kind of, for some reason, this image is deeply imprinted within human mythology and the human consciousness.
If that thing was bears, everyone would be like, "Oh yeah, bears used to exist at least, right?" Like if everyone's drawing the same thing,
and so I think it's very likely that on some that something like a dragon existed at some point.
And I don't know when, but I think
I don't know.
Let's see. The lepers crusaders at the Battle of Tyre and the Battle of Acre. There were leper crusaders at the Battle of Tyre and the Battle of Acre, says Mark Kavitsky.
I believe that. I believe that's possible. I'd have to look that one up to be sure. But
yeah, I just kind of heard about the leper crusaders today as I was researching for this. There were civilizations here 100,000 years ago, says Bamadiana.
Yeah, I think you're getting into we know for sure that civilization goes back 5,000 years based on archaeological evidence. That there's kind of a growing movement among kind of archaeologists and historians and kind of enthusiasts of both, that thinks that there was a possibility that civilization actually goes back much further than that. That there were civilizations prior to kind of the civilizations that developed 5,000 years ago around Mesopotamia, Egypt, and like China, because many of those civilizations in their writings of mythology, they reference older civilizations.
Prior,
the myth of Atlantis comes in is that Atlantis, the myth of Atlantis comes from the Egyptians. The Egyptians are the ones who like that were that story, who told the story to the Greeks.
So you would think that there must be something before the beginning.
Yes, and there's this idea that there was some kind of civilization that existed before that was wiped out for whatever reason.
And just like the dragons, we're seeing this repeated in some form throughout cultures, throughout the world.
Yeah, because many of like the oldest civilizations all basically, they all had accounts of older civilizations
who came before them, right?
Yeah, none of them thought that they were the first peoples.
So are you open to 100,000 years, or do you?
100,000 years again? You're getting into at that point. You can't prove any of that, and so like there's not archaeological evidence for that. I will say that.
Bama Deanna also says the story, not to cut you off. Sorry. This was kind of an addendum to, I think, what she said before. Did you want to finish that thought?
Go ahead.
Well, she was just saying the story is, I don't know what this means, but the story is on the walls in Egypt as told by Solon.
Solon being a Greek philosopher, I believe, or historian. Yes, so the origins of Atlantis come from Egypt, and the Egyptians are one of those peoples who they're one of the earliest civilizations, and in their records, right, they do not think that they are the first civilization.
Another instance
they have references to there was an age before us. There was many of these civilizations have there was an age before us. There was some kind of collapse, and the civilizations that we have records of arose later. Like there was something that there were civilizations that existed. Something happened that kind of collapsed it. People went back to kind of migratory patterns and not having civilization. And then at some point about 5,000 years ago, civilization started up again.
But we repeatedly see this pattern of things went pear-shaped.
There's this idea that it is definitely possible. It's starting to think more and more people are thinking that there's scattered evidence for
much
the idea
earlier
that
civilizations.
There were civilizations earlier, that we are only now kind of finding some evidence of that. And I hope I hope we will continue to find evidence for that.
Yeah, I'm very open to it.
It's a exciting time, as we get as the science, as the technology of archaeology kind of advances, we can hopefully go further and further back and trying to find out some of these things. I'm a lover of history and archaeology, so I hope for further discoveries and
clearly
expanding our understanding of humanity. And
I think it only deepens our understanding. It's not a threat to it or anything like that. I think it's
the people who get threatened by this are I think have a very
flimsy.
Yeah, it's because you don't have a lot to stand on. It's like I'm an Orthodox Christian. I'm a Christian. I'm an Orthodox Christian. I do not think that there is nothing that's going to be discovered that is going to threaten my faith.
Yeah.
It might change how I think about certain things.
But that would almost behoove you. It's like that just kind of clarifies.
It's not going to undermine. I don't think there's anything that's going to happen, and I'm not scared that anything's going to happen.
No.
It's going to undermine my belief, my faith. But it could change how I think about things. I mean, I think the kind of the one of the marks of wisdom is being able to kind of as you learn new things, changing what you think about them. It's like,
television did that, radio did that. It made us kind of examine how these things could be used for good and used for evil. There's just that evolution, I don't think ever stops. I think it's all part of a clarification, and not revelatory in the bad sense. I think it all just kind of clears the waters up for us. By the way, Sam is my godfather, technically. So
yes, I technically am his godfather.
He keeps me on the straight and narrow. Let's see. They say nobody. Some people don't accept the G word for natives. Yeah, I think that's a contentious issue. Honestly, the more that I examine the Old West history, the more I'm open to that concept. But it's a tricky thing. It's a tricky thing for a number of reasons. But that's a tricky one, man. I wouldn't deny it, but I think there's a lot of nuance to that.
To the
being a G side for natives, it's like, well,
a lot of it. So a lot of it, a lot of a lot of that came as a result of disease, right? That's the
biggest player in it. And then also you're working with how the native tribes, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So like so many of the native tribes were the driving agent in the destruction of their enemies. Like the U.S. Army would never have been able to find the Comanche if it was not for their Tonkawa scouts. And the Tonkawa hated the Comanche. And if they could eliminate every Comanche on the world, they would have done it. So a lot of these tribes had genocidal intentions of their own. It's just a very complex issue. But I will say my view that the United States government and several of the empirical powers treated the natives wildly unfairly is only more and more solidified the more that I study this. However, that said, I think the spread of Christianity and the mission system and everything is wildly misconstrued in many ways, and the conquistadors, I think, were a net positive because it's like they stopped.
Oh, the Aztecs were terrible.
They were horrible. And all of their neighbors thought they were horrible.
And basically, as soon as the conquistadors started fighting back against the Aztecs, all of the other tribes,
all of them, 80% of Cortez's force,
like, hey, we will send you forces to come fight these guys because 100%. These guys have been raiding our territory and taking slaves to sacrifice to their gods.
It was a whole economy based on slave sacrifice.
And it was the whole way that they would do that, and
it was demonic, just straight up
carve out your heart. They literally carve out their hearts, and
the more terrified you were, the more medicine they got out of it. And it was just a sick society.
And there was some, they were brutal, and there were some anthropologists who for years didn't believe that the Aztecs had actually done all that.
And I'm always of the mind, like, okay, it wasn't 80,000 prisoners.
Something made up by the conquistadors, basically.
Let's cut it in half. Let's cut it by 90%. Let's say that
they have since archaeologists have since found the graves. Let's put it that way. And if anything, the conquistadors underestimated how many.
I think, and I've said this several times too. Like, we just talked about this. Like, it was a paradigm shift for them to not sacrifice people. It was like such a until the advent of the conquistadors bringing the Catholic Church to Central America. It was insane for them to think, but we don't sacrifice people. There was no theological paradigm for them to say, let's not do that because that's a bad thing. It was a very good thing in their minds. It's what controlled the weather and controlled their fate. So they
literally thought that the Aztecs literally thought that the sun wouldn't rise if they could at least kill one person at least every day.
So it's like, I'm sorry the conquistadors had to come and put a stop to you sacrificing thousands of people. And are the conquistadors, if we sat down with I make this point all the time about the Texas Rangers and a lot of different old West types, I guess, is the conquistadors, is the beginning of the Old West. But if you sat down, if me and you were sitting at the table with Cortez or Bigfoot Wallace or whoever, they'd make us a little nervous. You'd probably be like, bro, this guy's a little intense. He needs to take it down a notch. He's a little punchy. But if you saw what the Aztec were doing or what the Comanche were doing, it would scar you forever. You wouldn't even be able to take it all in. It was so horrific.
It was horrific.
So I think it's like, they are a net positive, but it's a very complex issue. And I think it's like the Crusades. Like, we need to look at it as a tri-party thing. It's like, well, it's not just Catholics and Muslims. There's an Orthodox part to that too, if you want to fully understand it. And if you want to fully understand the New World, you have to look at the tribes that worked with the European powers and the tribes that worked against them. So it's European powers, allied tribes, and enemy tribes. There's 3 parts going on here.
Well, you also got to look at the civilizations that predated kind of what was there when the Europeans first arrived, and they're like, so we still don't really have a good explanation for why the Mayan Empire collapsed.
Nope. We know why the Inca collapsed, but the predecessors to the Aztec, the Aztec found those pyramids.
Yes, the Mayans who were the ones who built those, right?
They're just like, oh, okay.
And we don't know how it is that their civilization goes from basically creating a very accurate calendars and like they were extremely advanced civilization,
and then gone. Yep.
And the best explanation is usually the Olmecs before them. The best explanation is that there was some kind of blight disease.
It's always disease.
It was a disease that wiped out the plants too. Like that was the thing. It wiped out their staple crops. And
Apocalypto does a great job of alluding to this.
Yeah, is what ends up happening, right, is if you once your civilization urbanizes to a certain point, if all of a sudden 30% of the population was wiped out, you can't make enough food to support everybody, so everybody ends up dying. After that, like everybody starves, and so these are things that we don't fully understand. How those groups died. Groups like the Pueblo in Arizona too, is the other kind of in North America, the kind of the precursor civilizations to the ones that kind of existed. There's a lot we just don't understand about, and there's a lot of it like the why did certain types of civilization kind of take hold in certain areas versus others.
Why was it Tenochtitlan and then up in Alberta, Canada, we haven't even gotten the horse yet, and you're kind of just living in these lean-tos. It's like, why did it take place in Central America? And meanwhile, they're in the Northern Rockies, they're still living a hunter-gatherer existence without horses. Like
and one of the reasons is because the New World is just abundant. The resources in America are just way more abundant than they are in Europe and Asia.
And that's the reason, that was a driving force behind the expansion of European powers, because it was like, well, the land in Europe is all taken. It's all been taken by feudal lords.
We don't really understand why civilization develops in the first place. What like the transition between wandering tribes to all of a sudden we're gonna stay in one area and cultivate crops instead.
That essentially never happened on the plains of America. Just as one, it's like it never really happened.
And so we don't really have a good explanation for why that happens. And many of the civilizations that existed, the earliest civilizations that existed, all attribute that basically to divine intervention. So how did people learn to cultivate crops? Well, the gods came and told us.
and like you were just saying, like the turning point really is the landing of Cortez and Pizarro and et al. I'm blanking on names now, even though I've read a bunch of books on them. Is the turning point, but really the genesis is Cortez's and the Conquistadors landing, but the turning point is the vision of Our Lady of Guadalupe. Like that was a supernatural event that really changed an entire continent. There was no going back after that. If you don't know the Our Lady of Guadalupe, if you've been to any former Spanish enclave in North America, if you've been anywhere close to the Mexican border and any Mexican-American strongholds in America, you will have seen the Virgin of Guadalupe. She is in every shrine, and that changed everything. That was
yes, and it was for those who don't know, the bullet point version of that is that prior to that point, there had not been a lot. There were priests who had been sent over, but they weren't really doing a lot of missionary work. They were mostly just there to minister to the Spanish overlords, and they're
just trying to like hold on. They're just.
And so there was a native young boy, I think, has a vision of the Virgin Mary, and tells him to go gather a bunch of these flowers in his tunic, and go and show it to the priest. And so he goes, does that. He goes to the priest and he shows it. And as as it kind of unfurls, the flowers make an icon of the Virgin Mary. you can still go see it today. It still exists.
Mm-hmm.
And this was taken as a sign that the Spanish needed to actually focus on converting the native population.
The evangelization stage was
needed to happen, and that's what happened. Is that shortly after that they basically put a concerted effort into it. They established missions everywhere.
And I watched a lecture of
the population.
I believe his name is Dan Casagrande. I'm like, Mr. Casagrande, I respect you and everything, but he had one, I thought, in my opinion, ridiculous comment saying that the conquistadors had been short-sighted and the Spanish had been short-sighted on forcing their religion on the peoples of Central and South America. And if they hadn't been short-sighted, things would have worked out better. And I think they converted a continent and a half that are still ardently Catholic to this day. The whole reason their civilizations developed is because of that conversion.
And the idea that you wouldn't convert a nation to your religion is actually it's a pretty uniquely only the Christians have conquered peoples and not
forced them. Yeah.
There's basically every other group in history.
I thought that was for a very smart lecture. I would even recommend watching his lecture. It's very informative, but that particular little addendum, I was like, that is incredibly short-sighted for such a learned man, but such is the order of life. We disagree sometimes. Let's see. They found 25-year-old textile in a cave in Oregon. Didn't know that. Let's see. In the U.S. military, you get pinned, and if you're in the Marines, you get dead-legged when you earn your blood stripes. I have a lot of Marine friends. They told me about that. You guys punch the metal in their chests. It's
yeah. It's
I'm glad we have you guys, but I don't want something punched into my chest.
The idea of a male rite of passage being cemented with physical violence.
It's not new, and it is I'm glad they do it. I'm glad we have this warrior culture that is.
You got to prove that you can take a punch.
It's a tough. Let's not sugar. I'm not a soldier, right? But let's not sugarcoat it. It's a brutal business we're in here, and if you can't take a punch from a pin, you might find another line of work.
Yeah, you got to get slapped to show that you can take it.
Yeah, it's like that, right? That's a great point.
That you're not so enraged by the king or whoever other knight is slapping you that you have to fight them, but you can both take the hit, contain your anger, but also then understand that that's the last time. This is you have to defend. You are obligated to defend your honor. I
never put those together. What a great analogy or comparison. What do you call it? I don't know. I'm not great with literary devices.
Well, it's like the for most of history, the idea that you would have the martial class was a necessity.
Yeah, and a martial class, not you didn't enlist for it. It's a martial class.
No, a class because warfare was brutal. And the site they've done some studies on this too. Is the psychology of modern people don't realize the psychology of modern war is actually way less psychologically intensive
because it's not up close.
Yeah, than the idea of fighting in a shield wall and hacking someone to death with a sword or an axe or whatever is a huge psychological toll that takes on people.
And there had to be a system set up behind that to reintegrate those people into society, right? Yeah.
Well, and also to kind of and to protect. So you needed those. There's been instances in the ancient and medieval world where basically two armies kind of came together and they sat across the field and yelled at each other, and then nobody took the first step, and then everybody eventually gets embarrassed and goes home.
Happens all the time in intertribal warfare. All the time, dude.
Because it's nobody was brave enough to be that first guy.
And they'll stand out there and yell at each other all day. They're just going you suck, and they'll yell you suck.
And because they're building, they had to build themselves up to be able to do that. Because humans are not actually we're not actually built for that.
And if you've never tried anything like that, it is not natural. It's not natural.
Now there's some 2%, there's some small percentage of the population that's what they live for. Or it is they feel great doing going into the breach, going into being that first one. And so you have to have systems based, but the rest of their lives are like utter disasters.
Yeah.
You know,
Achilles.
So Achilles is the great
Archetype.
is the archetype of that, right?
Yeah.
It's like Achilles in his personal life and his personal dealings was an utter disaster. But they needed to keep him around and keep him appeased, because when you need somebody to be the first guy through the breach, well, that's what Achilles is.
The adage that you cannot win a war with choir boys is absolutely true.
Yes.
It's like, and it's like you're either born like that or you're not, and that is the dichotomy of it, the two-edged sword of just like, yeah, you have these great skills, like Mozart, like any other very talented person.
Genius is of any field. It's usually the rest of their life is a complete disaster.
You live at these two extremities of great skill and then great, almost, I guess, ineptitude or.
So great warriors are very often the same way. And again, it's why you have to have systems kind of, because they're needed, they fill a vital role within society. You have to kind of tolerate some level of their deviant behavior, and kind of put people around them basically who can keep them in check.
100%.
But because it causes problems when they're not in check. But you need them, so you kind of have to keep them around. And this is a whole this is actually one of the kind of the one of the hard things about the modern world is we don't have a place for those people anymore.
Yeah.
Not very much.
UFC, the special forces, and I'm not even being funny. I mean, I really mean that.
Yeah, but there's a lot of the there's not, and the reason there's not, I say there's not a place because yes, there's a thing that they can go do in one sense, but the protections that kind of existed in the ancient world don't exist
now.
Right. So the problem. Okay. So you need people who can basically be those fighters. The people who are gonna. It's the same kind of people who goes ziplining through the Grand Canyon on a beach, right? It's because it's the only time they feel alive is when they're doing stuff like that. And we don't really have protections for those people anymore. But that's a certain percentage of the population, and it's always going to be that case.
There's nothing you can do to change it. Yeah, it's like trying to make a German Shepherd into a lapdog. It's like it's not gonna. It's not their breed.
It's too hardwired into some of these people. And a part of what being a just society means is you have to have a place for a lot of different kinds of people.
Yeah. And those people ultimately protect the people that you're the weaker people. And it's like, they're essential.
Again, the modern world has kind of removed the necessity of the martial class, and it's created a problem. Because we don't
commercialized it.
We don't know what to do with the martial class.
Yeah, we can only commercialize it.
Yes, and it's a problem.
Let's see here. I'm gonna roll through. I got still a lot of chats coming in. But we'll finish this up here. Josh McAllister says this will be a good one. He's gonna push back a little bit on us, which is great. Those damn priests burned all the codices and books of the natives. So much information was lost to us because of those smug, uppity B words. Yeah, I mean, I would say you can't judge an entirety. And I mean, I'm not Catholic, so I'm not arguing for the Catholic Church, but you can't judge an entire institution off of the actions of a couple individuals. I would say that. I don't know.
Well, you also the way I'm gonna push back on this is why would you have expected any group not to wipe out the records of their old civilization?
Library of Alexandria.
Yes. The idea that you would preserve, that there would be value in preserving this
great
knowledge.
Point.
That's a pretty quite honestly, uniquely Christian worldview. Most of history, you don't see that. Christianity actually preserved knowledge for the most part. Now, obviously, you can find incidents of where Christians are burning books or whatever.
But it's a good point from their worldview. Why would we keep this?
Yeah. Why would the expectation be that we should preserve those things?
Yeah.
And I like that's my pushback on those questions is like, why would you, you know, why our whole kind of baseline expectations that, oh, it's a tragedy that these things were lost is like, well, but part of the reason why we kind of have that expectation, why we have that kind of belief that it's a tragedy that these things are lost, like that comes from kind of a certain worldview that is not universal, right? And it's not like this is a universally acknowledged good thing that we preserve knowledge.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. That's my pushback.
No, that's a great push. Yeah. And if you have anything to add to that, Josh, I'd love to hear it, man. I think that's that's a great point. It's like, well, why?
I do think, like I do happen to think it's tragic that the amount of things that were burned, even by you know, by Christians, right?
And let's not mince. I won't you know, tiptoe around the point. Like many people were killed horribly and unjustly by all manner of authority. People were killed at the hands of priests, but I think far few. I think Father Junipero Serra from California is a admirable man. I think he did a lot for the natives there. Doesn't mean everything he did was great, but it is an interesting point. If you're trying to convert people from their former worldview, why would I mean, they would have done the same thing to the Celts. They would have done the same thing to the Gauls. They would have done the same. It's not like the tribes here.
When the Romans conquered the Dacia, they annihilated their civilization so thoroughly that we don't know anything about them.
Yeah, we don't know anything about them.
We don't. Yeah, and they annihilated their civilization so thoroughly, and then named the area. That's why we call it. That's why it's Romania, by the way. You know.
Oh, they just changed it because we're Roman now.
They changed it named it after themselves.
I didn't know that.
They annihilated the culture so thoroughly that we don't know anything about them to this day, or we know very little. I mean, we don't know nothing. We know very little.
It'd be like if Texas invaded Oklahoma and then you didn't even know that Oklahoma existed anymore.
That was the standard.
Yeah, you would take it over
for thousands of years.
And there was no, at least from the Christian point, and I'm not trying to over apologize for this because, like I said, I'm just trying to be nuanced and have a fully fleshed out conversation on it. But the Romans had no interest in conversion. They had no interest in the actual life
they didn't care
quality.
what gods you worshipped for the most part, as long as for most of the so our idea of we sometimes try to think of pagan religions as similar to modern religions, and they're very much not, because a lot of the pagan religions were geography based, and it was not a contradiction for okay, if I'm in Rome, I'm going to worship Jupiter, right? Because this is
so you just do as the Romans do.
Yeah. Whereas if I'm in Egypt, I'm of course going to worship Ra because the Ra is the god of Egypt. And there wasn't this kind of contradiction that you could have the Greek gods in Greece, the Roman gods in Rome, and the
Germanic
Christian gods and like there was no kind of and there wasn't any for the most part in paganism you wouldn't worship any gods but the ones you were born under, right? Okay. You wouldn't like, you know, now in the Roman era this changes a little bit too, because if you like go to Egypt, sometimes you start worshiping the Egyptian gods.
Okay.
Especially if you wanted to get buried as an Egyptian, because the Egyptians go all out for burial. So you know,
true. Yeah, I can't blame you for that.
If you were rich, you would try to be buried as an Egyptian.
Yeah, I can't blame you for that. That's swaggy.
But yeah, that's kind of how pagan religion worked. Is different from kind of the monotheistic religions. So I don't know. How did we get on this topic? I kind of lost my train of thought here.
Oh, we're talking about the just kind of the. I'm trying to find the right words for it, but just the priests' motives behind the destruction of native materials.
And we may not know the answer to that. Because we don't know what was written there. Maybe I mean, and I'm not defending it, but maybe I mean, look, man, when we did the archaeology of the pornography that existed within the ancient world is shocking.
Could have been. It is. Go look at Roman murals. Like it's a full-on Hustler cover.
Yeah, pretty bad. And
it's not that I would know, but it's like the middle spread of Hustler.
Yeah, and so yeah, the wiping out civilizations as you conquered areas was not uncommon.
And again, I would just say this is unique this is a very, I just want to color it a little bit. I'm not even saying this is my opinion, but the motive, I would say, is different. Like they weren't, the Romans were conquering this place and turning it into Rome. Now the priests were like, well, this is bad for your soul. We're going to get rid of this. We think this behooves you. It wasn't a matter of imperial conquest so much as maybe spiritual concern.
Well, and there wasn't, you know, it also wasn't necessarily that these the peoples in Mesoamerica were eager to save their old stuff either.
No, a lot of times the medicine men would be like,
we're like, well, yeah, we're going to be happy to convert to Christianity. We can get rid of all this old stuff now.
They said again and again, we were just kind of winging it, man. Thanks for showing up.
Yeah. So it's not, you know, like I, as a historian and as or at least an amateur historian, right? I mean, I lament some of the fact that some of this was destroyed too, because it's like, but I have to understand too that that's a very kind of, this is me looking back. I can be kind of mournful of that, but I'm not fit to pass judgment on the people who did that. It's like, I don't know what I didn't live that life, and I wasn't there, and I didn't see it. Like I can't, you know, I can't. And that's kind of what I believe about history in general. And this is I'm endlessly fascinated by history. I'm endlessly fascinated by the people of history. I like to try to get to know as much as I can about their motivations, about what their lives were like, you know, why they did the things they did. But I think in order to do that kind of ethically, you have to take a position of like, you know, I am not fit to judge them.
I'm just not.
And it's not like,
because in 200, 400 years, someone will be saying that about us.
Well, yeah, and it's yes, they will, and very likely, and it's also I can learn about their lives, I can learn about you know the things that they believed and what they went through, but I didn't experience that, and I didn't experience what their lives were like. And because of that, it's kind of, it does mean that I can't, you know, I don't feel, and in some ways too, I live in the world. We all live in the world that came about as a result of their actions that these people did.
Yep.
And you know, history. The reason you learn about history is because history is the story of who we are and where we came from. Yeah, and why it's so important is because if you don't know who you are and where you came from, you can't move forward in life.
I equate it to a being. If you look at, if you're in a mall, right? Let's say mall is a giant timeline of human history. If you don't find that map in the middle, you know, go to the kiosk and find the map and see where you are in that mall, you're lost. You don't know where you're going, and people don't know where they are. Like, I don't know where that happened before me and how that points to what could happen next. It's you're just living blind, you know.
Oh, I was laughing at that Happy Cappy's comment here. We do have the most powerful god, though.
Happy Cappy's she's a soldier. They're like Bamadiana, Happy Cappy.
That was a very kind of, in a pagan worldview, the idea that you wouldn't convert to your if you got conquered was kind of also
That's the whole.
It's pretty common, right?
Early martyrdom was like, early Christians were like, well, listen, you can be a Christian. We don't even care, but just give a little pinch of incense to the Roman emperor.
Yeah, because they didn't see it as they were not. They didn't see it as contradictory that you could have your god or your gods, you know, God's god or gods.
It didn't bother them a bit. They didn't care.
You had to you had to pay tribute to our gods because we conquered you, you know. And when you know Christians refused to do that, they got killed.
They were like, no dice, bro.
Yep,
we're in it to win it. Let's see. I saw one more. And I'm trying to finish these up here. Bamadiana, Columbus bloodlines. Can't get into that, Bamadiana. Let's see. Andrew Jackson was going. I'm not sure what that means. Let's see if there's any. 9 banded armadillos can carry leprosy, but you need to eat them. Well, don't worry, I won't be eating any armadillos. A lot of Sam is great. Bring Sam back. We got a lot of Sam fans in here, which is awesome. I told you guys you'd like Sam. Oh, Bamadiana, $5 super chat. Thank you so much. I challenge you to a quiz on the Middle Ages. Me, I would lose, but Sam might be good at it. Next time we bring Sam on, we can do that. I got to figure out how to run a
quiz on the Middle Ages.
I'll make it up and then I'll issue it to you and Sam. Let's see. I used to run long distance in the Marine Corps, which made me a good squad RO. What's an RO? I know the Marines run a lot, man. I got a lot of Marine friends and they run all over the place. I used to live in San Diego too. You see the Marines running all the time. Let's see. Many of the words are in Old Hebrew that over the centuries changed. Oh, I think you're talking about the interpretation of scripture because it comes from Old Hebrew, but there's a lot of Greek and Aramaic in there too.
Yeah. So, and most of the New Testament was written predominantly in Greek because Greek was the common tongue of that part of the world. Because you had kind of the conquests of Alexander the Great, and the kind of influx of Hellenic peoples into the Middle East.
So Greek became kind of the lingua franca.
Yeah, Greek was the common language. Greek was the scholarly language too, right? That's what you wrote things in. And so that's why, yes, a lot of the New Testament especially was written in Greek. So yeah.
Let's see. I'm finishing up here. We're almost to the bottom of the chats. I am weak and slow, says Elite Super Brown. No one here is weak and slow. We are all strong and fast. I have a katana. Oh yeah, we talked about your katana, Bamadiana. Bamadiana has quite the collection.
That's cool. I would I have 2 swords of my own. They're both European swords. One of them is a 1.5-hand sword, and one of them is an arming sword.
But you want the halberd, I guess. Like those aren't your go-tos.
I would also like to have a katana. What I actually really want is a nagamaki, which is a
this is a family program. Watch your mouth, man.
A nagamaki is a cross between a katana and naginata, essentially. So it's like a katana blade. It's a katana blade, but it's on a longer.
Okay, I can dig that.
A bit of a longer
handle.
Hilt.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And I couldn't think of the word for a minute. Hilt. And the I would like one of those, but getting one will be expensive, and I'm broke. So
yeah. When the economy picks up a little bit here,
yeah, maybe I'll get myself a nagamaki.
Oh wow, I'm sorry. If you guys put in a super chat, I'm so sorry because we've just been on a roll here. $20 super chat from Terry R. Thank you so much. Great. Oh, we got that. Okay, great discussion. We got that. I'm sorry. I just want to make sure I got that. Thank you very much. Castrati were compensated with a life of luxury. True, and some of them were married. True, but I mean, I don't care how much luxury you got. You ain't got enough luxury
done to you as a child, right? That was the idea, and it became a problem. Became enough of a problem that the church had to outlaw.
Yeah, there was a whole underground industry, and this was, if you're wondering what's the point behind the castrati, it's so that they could sing the what we call them hymns.
There was this idea that the voice of a castrati was the closest to kind of an angelic voice, because it's kind of an in between.
And could you not have women in the choirs? Was there something like that too?
Well, you wouldn't do monastic choirs for sure. I don't know when you get women in the choirs, but it was especially in the West, in the Catholic Church, like you wouldn't have had women singing in church is a relatively modern.
They would have used they couldn't, in their view, I guess, use a woman to effectuate these tones. Like you had to.
Well, and again, it was thought to be that this was because the castratis do not sound like women.
No, you can listen to it. It's
kind of eerie.
You sit there the whole time going, I wish this was a woman, because then it would kind of make sense.
Yeah, it's a little, it's strange. It's strange. Yeah.
Happy Cappy says Moors in Ireland is why I have this hair. Are you like I think they call them Black Irish? I love those Black Irish girls, I'll tell you that much. It's not my term, that's an actual term, YouTube. Let's see. Debatable. Oh, Armenian Bishop says it's debatable about the Moors being in Ireland. Not sure. Let's see. I should be taking notes. I forgot half of what I want to look at. You don't need to take notes for this. Let's see. The Venetians were fighting over trade routes. Bamadiana says, bye, y'all. Good. Thanks for coming by, Bamadiana. Bamadiana is a mainstay. Like, we almost can't start the show without Bamadiana. The Templars still exist. I have a friend who was one, and he was recently sworn in, says Mark Kavitsky. Do you know anything about that?
I do not think that that's the case.
I don't.
I think that they were wiped out and did not come back. I could be wrong about that. That they could like the Knights of Malta, or like the Knights of St. John, right? They could have survived, but I don't believe that that's the case.
Armenian Bishop says Hospitallers made a payment of a falcon to the Pope. I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's what the Falcon of Malta, right? I mean, it's a associated with Malta. But I think that there may have been attempts at later points to restart the Templars, but there's no continuity.
Yeah, there's a broken line
between any current groups and the Templars.
Right.
Whereas there is continuity between Knights of St. John.
Right. Yes. Like an apostolic lineage, right? It's like, well, this has to be continuous or it's kind of nullified. In 1530, Emperor Charles V gave the Knights Hospitaller Malta, Gazo, and Tripoli to provide them with a new base after their expulsion from Rhodes by the Ottoman Empire in 1522. Very interesting. I did not know that.
Yeah. So
that's like conquistador time then.
Yeah.
The Knights Templar set up the first international banking system. That's true. Attila was poisoned.
I think that's a questionable.
Yeah, it's a questionable
history that we don't know. Now the events surrounding Attila's death are actually kind of interesting. So at the Battle of the Catalonian Fields, that Attila beats the Irish and Gothic forces, and he's marching on Rome. And he's going to
fighting
Rome.
The Irish and the Gothic. I don't really know.
Not the Irish. The Roman and Goth. So yeah, the Romans and the Goth. Did I say Irish?
You said I was like, I really was like, I didn't know
Irish people, and I don't know. I saw something in the chat. I got whatever. Misspoke, but no, he beats the Romans in the Gothic kind of alliance, and he's marching on Rome, and it's the Pope of Rome at the time. I believe it's Saint Gregory. I believe it's Gregory. He goes out and meets with Attila, in private. Nobody knows what was discussed. No, it is. Nobody knows what was discussed. What is known is that Attila withdrew and did not sack Rome.
So we know
and then very shortly after that, he gets married and dies on his wedding night of a bloody nose.
If that happened today, we'd have a whole lot of questions. We'd want some YouTubers diving into.
Well, and we don't know, and no one. And after he died, the Huns kind of fragmented. They didn't have another leader who was.
There wasn't Kublai Khan or whatever. There wasn't a succession.
There was not really no. They fragmented and they went back to being Central Asian nomads.
Just like kind of a biker gang, essentially.
Yeah. There were different groups of Huns, like the White Huns were which was a different tribe of Huns.
And are they what constitute Hungary? Like
no. So the Hungarians are there's a mix of ethnic groups, but one of the Hungarians, the kind of core ethnic groups, are the Magyars. Okay. And the Magyars were also a nomadic. They were one of the nomadic groups that were basically fleeing the Huns.
Okay, so
they settled in Hungary.
Westward off the steppe.
Yeah, okay. They came from somewhere in Central Asia, and settled in Hungary, end up becoming one of the Hungarians today.
But that is not related to the Huns then. Okay.
It's related into a lot of the migrations of peoples into Europe at that time were done because of the Huns.
They're
because the Huns
fleeing
were
the Huns.
literally
Okay.
forcing people out of their.
Yes.
The Huns were coming into whole areas and just killing everybody. And
They're
so it was
proto-Comanche, 100%.
Yeah, and they were basically like people were having to flee, like uproot their entire civilizations and flee the Huns.
You gotta go, yeah, because it's not like
These
we can
people
kind of
were bad news, capital, edible.
you weren't gonna like, unless you're Rome, you're not gonna like talk it out with them. They're gonna come and they're gonna run you over. They're gonna unalive everybody.
Yeah, they were brutal.
They'll take your dog out.
They were not interested, and they were not really interested in conquering areas. They were just interested in looting and looting, and like unlike the Mongols, who were actually interested in holding the territories that they conquered, the Huns did not have any interest in that.
A biker gang, just straight up.
The Huns were going to loot and pillage and rape, and then they were going to leave.
There was no like grand plan. They were just
there was no kingdom that they were forming. There was no they were almost demonic.
That's why I call them proto-Comanche, and I would say the same thing about the Comanche warfare, like kind of demonic.
Attila called himself the scourge of God.
Yeah, the scourge of God.
He said, "Your gods must truly hate you if they have sinned to me."
And this whole yes, dude, think about what an intense. That's like a 80s WWE. Like,
it's over the top.
I mean, but he means it. He's not kidding. He's like, I mean that.
It was.
Let's see here. Ballintrodoc. Does that sound familiar? Now the village of Temple in Midlothian, Scotland, was the principal headquarters and preceptory of the Knights Templar in Scotland. It was established in 1153. Are you familiar with that?
Not super familiar, but
their primary base was Ballintrodoc.
But yes, there were chapters of the Knights Templar that were all over Europe. And
he also says, following the suppression in 1307, many Templar properties were transferred to the Knights Hospitaller.
Yes. Because the Templar were basically wiped out.
And after the French king Louis, I don't know,
I don't remember which one, but yes, he tortured them, and under torture they confessed.
They confessed
because under torture you will literally say anything. This is why actually torture is not actually considered that useful as an interrogation method anymore, because if you're being you'll literally say anything. Yep. You'll say anything you think will get them to stop.
And he used it, and he kicked all of them out. And the unluckiest, he held the leaders. He burned them at the stake. If you want to hear a really dramatic, I'm sorry.
Really sad what happened to them.
I was going to say it is sad, and I found it inspiring in some ways when you read the accounts of the firsthand accounts of the execution of the Templar leaders, because they're shipped they put them on a boat. They go out to this little island, I think. And before they're tied to the stake and they're going to be burned, this is, in my estimation, the worst way to go out. They ask for a couple of minutes to pray, and they kneel down and they say their prayers. And then they're like, okay, let's go. And it's like, man, that's martyrdom. That's a bad dude. That dude is the real deal.
The Templar, love him or hate him, for the most part, were actually committed to their cause.
They had to be. It's like you couldn't live that life without an actual commitment to what you're doing.
Yes, and they were committed to that, and that was it was a hard life to get into.
And I don't want that job. All right, let's see. I'm going to finish up here. Let's give it 5 more minutes, and then we're going to be at 3.5 hours. So thank you again, everybody. Thanks, Sam, for coming in and enlightening us so much here. The Bible says the Nephilim are still around. I'm not sure.
No, I don't think. I think the Bible is pretty clear that they are not still around. But
Sam's our expert.
That's I don't know. That's a whole other conversation.
Let's see. Dinosaurs and dragons are mentioned in the book of. What's up, Space Cowboy? They're mentioned in the book of Job.
I mean, dragons are mentioned in the Bible at various points of the and as for what as for dinosaurs, it's kind of a hard, you know, I feel like there's so much we don't, there's more we don't know about dinosaurs than we do, quite honestly.
Oh, 100%, dude. And then look into the bone wars.
It's so hard to kind of actually piece together an accurate
literally it's literally hard to piece together.
It's literally and there's too much that's missing from what we have fossils, because fossils, so people think that fossils are a lot, sometimes people think fossils are a lot more common than they actually are.
Yep.
Fossils only form under very specific circumstances. So when a thing has to die in a very specific way and have the bones going to be preserved in a very
specific place. Yeah.
So fossils are incredibly rare.
Mm-hmm.
And fossils, and there's also there's types of bones that won't leave fossils either.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah. So like bird bones won't fossilize because they're hollow.
I was going to ask that because they're hollow. Okay. Yeah.
And that's this is among people like who are nerds like me, right? You know, one of the theories as to why we don't have dragon fossils is because, well, if they were flying, they might have had hollow bones like birds, and we don't have fossils of them.
And then they say that dinosaurs are kind of like old proto birds, and it's like, well, if that's the case, why would they have these heavy bones?
Well, I know, and there's a lot we don't know about them, and there's a lot we kind of you know, there almost really needs to be a concerted effort to kind of reinterpret a lot of what we know about the kind of dinosaurs. And the problem is there's unlikely to be an international effort to do that right now.
100%, no way.
And since a lot of like the different fossils are owned by different countries and different museums or whatever, like you'd have to kind of, you know, it's complicated.
It's very complicated.
I hope that the field kind of gets revived at some point and starts to see some new developments on it. But it's not been a very active, like paleontology, and like it's not a very active field right now.
It's I think,
and it hasn't been.
It's going to have to be kind of deconstructed and reformed in some fashion, because like a lot of what we're being sold just doesn't. It seems tenuous and in grave danger of being disproven in the near future. So we're going to have to. It's not to say that we don't
develop new technologies to kind of be able to look further and further back. I mean, you get the development of LiDAR. Was really important to realizing that some of the civilizations in the Amazon,
because you couldn't see it,
we could see, and so there's this kind of, you know, the first generation of explorers in the Amazon come back with these wild tales about, you know, El Dorado, these cities of gold.
We've done episodes on them,
and it's like, well, but by the time the second generation of explorers goes looking, they can't find it.
All gone. They're all, and
gone.
I'm blanking on his name. Oriana. When Oriana went up the Amazon River, he describes shorelines full of these people, and the Amazon women
cities out there.
They talk about it like fact. Like there were Amazonian women. They were 8 feet tall. They lived way back in the jungle. They would come out to mate with the local male population. They just say it like fact. And it's apropos of nothing. There's no reason for them to put this in there.
Yeah, and it's why but then they can't find it when
they're gone.
And so what we kind of think happened now is that basically these entire civilizations got wiped out by smallpox.
Yep, 100%.
And then the jungles just kind of reabsorbed this.
And you can go look
at them now. You can. What's funny with things like LiDAR, you can actually see now where some of these cities were.
And they were massive. Like when the conquistadors got to Tenochtitlan, they were like, well, we haven't seen a city like this. This is pretty wild. There wasn't really anything. There might have been something to rival it in Europe, but there wasn't anything to surpass it in Europe. These were massive cities and with tons and tons of people.
Yeah, no, they were. I mean, the pyramids that they built too, right? I mean, like it was
incredible.
Not the Aztecs, but the people,
the Olmec before them.
Yeah, no, it's
Got
crazy.
a couple more here. Okay, so Mark Kavitsky says some people who lived during the Inquisition would disagree about not being forced to convert. I think the Inquisition would merit its own
I think
episode.
The Inquisition is a dark spot in the history of Christianity. Admittedly, I don't think
Yeah,
anyone can deny that.
yeah.
And
It is primarily a
it's
Catholic endeavor.
It's not like there is not really an equivalent in the East as far as
We're not throwing shade, guys. I'm just
reality.
explaining. Yeah,
and it's a good example though of what kind of happens when you take certain kind of religious fervors too far, and when people get caught up in these kind of social movements and then get carried away with it. In a sense,
sure.
the same kind of thing happens in the French Revolution.
100%.
Right,
yeah.
where
fervor.
The further you go down certain roads, the easier it becomes to keep going down them.
And you almost have it's like the sunken cost fallacy. Like, well, we can't turn around now. We got too much put into this. They're less likely to change their mind.
Yeah, and it's a humans are group animals, right? We are, and a lot of our psychology is around that. Like we are very much programmed to want to follow the herd.
Yeah.
And go along with those things. And we kind of have this baseline assumption, well, the person in charge must know what they're doing, right? And then so often the people in charge are themselves caught up in this movement, and they can't, and they're not in control.
That's the French Revolution. Yeah. It's like,
and it just escalates. And the Crusades are example of that too.
Absolutely.
Is people were caught up in this movement. Some of them for good reasons, some of them for ill reasons, and most of them were just kind of along for the ride.
Yeah, that's how people are. Yeah,
and they were just like, oh well, the Lord wants to go do this. It sounds like we're just gonna go do it. And then they just get flung into this whole escalating series of events that they don't have any control over. That winds up with they wind up with a kingdom.
Look at any protest that gets out of hand today. It's like where it devolves into looting or whatever. It's like most of the people aren't doing that. It's just
looting because that's part of human nature.
Yeah, it just is.
It's not, and I'm not saying that to like justify it.
No, but it is.
But it is a part of when you read in the ancient medieval world of the sack of cities, right?
We were just talking about that, how the Crusaders
was like Saint Augustine writes about this in the City of God, right? That one of that he justifies suicide under some circumstances, and one of those is if you're in a city that's about to be sacked.
I didn't know that.
Women who wanted to preserve their virginity throwing themselves off the tower, like that was okay in his mind. And then the church kind of, I think, confirms some of that sometimes too.
It's something that kind of
sometimes it was the grim responsibility of the last defenders of the siege was to kill the women.
Yeah, that's not terribly unique.
We don't think about that.
Don't we see something like that with the Maccabees?
What?
Don't we see something like that with the Maccabees?
We do, and we at various points, like, but in general, like in the ancient world too. Like, I mean, this was kind of in the medieval world. Like, this was you did not want to be a woman when your city or castle was sacked.
Absolutely not. It is. And it's a sure thing. It's not maybe.
Yeah,
it's
no,
a sure thing.
There's a bunch of guys who have sat outside this city for the last, sometimes the last several years.
Yeah.
Haven't even seen it's like they're all pent up. They're drunk off violence, which is a
real thing.
Yeah. And so that's the rape and the pillaging. That's kind of a thing that happens in the
grape. We say grape.
Grape. Okay, sorry, I'll watch myself.
It's you got to get used to it.
Yeah, I will. I'll have to.
I kind of use it in it's leaked into my normal vernacular now, or like I have trouble saying those words in normal. I'm like, I can't say that. It's like,
well, but the reality. That's the reality. Is that those things were done, and were very normal in in the world. And
A
I mean, can you
virtual
imagine
certainty.
having to be, as you're the last defenders of a siege, and your final responsibility before going and fighting to your death?
No, I can't imagine
killing,
it.
are killing the women who are cowering in the storeroom.
It's,
like,
I mean, it's beyond kind of what we
it's
can conceptualize. Thank
yeah.
God.
But it was considered like this is like your last duty as an honorable man.
Yeah, It's just, yes, absolutely.
Like it was better. It was sparing them from a worse fate.
Yep. Space Cowboy with a 100 years from now, fair-minded. I can't probably read that out loud, Space Cowboy, but I agree with you emphatically. I think there's that's kind of what I was alluding to.
Comment as well. So we'll that was a good one.
What's that?
The one you were thinking about not reading out loud. I also like that comment.
Absolutely, yeah, we're 100% behind that. It's a travesty we can't say that out loud. That's what I was talking about when I said, 200, 400 years from now, people will look at us like we were monstrous. I think that's what they're going to look at us and regard us as little better, if not worse than the Aztecs in that respect. So,
yep,
I agree. Charles says, is what moral relativism? I'm not sure. I don't think anything we've said is moral relativism, but I'd be open to hearing what that is. I have Josh has all kinds of bows and arrows. I have 4 bows and quivers, plain style. I got 4 ball-headed war clubs and an 8-foot coup stick, a spear, and a couple other weapons, all made by me. Josh is like a legit, I forget what tribe, Josh, but from the Southeast. He makes all these weapons. He's sending us some paintings to put in the back. He does like psychedelic Old West art. It's really cool.
I'd love to see some of that too.
It's really cool. He's such a learned guy. I'm talking you up now.
I love I'm obviously I'm a history nut, so kind of I love to see ancient weapons and
I learned so much from this chat. Like it's the most impressive chat I'm not tooting my horn, I'm tooting the chat's horn and saying this is like this is the most impressive live chat I've ever seen. I learned so much from it's kind of a 50-50. Like I come on to talk about something, but I learn a ton.
Yeah, it's an important, that's, and again, like I was saying earlier, like, you part of why you do these is you want to learn things, and you want to both learn from have other people learn what you're doing and and learn from them as well.
Doug Allen, I think I had problems with you. Is Doug Allen the guy, the troublemaker? Doug Allen, you get one more shot, dog. Then we're 86 in you. Jeff Baum says, "What's up, Jeff Baum? Good to see you, bro. Sorry, I've been talking, so I'm getting to the chat now. Yeah, if anybody sees Doug back in there, 86 Doug. I'm kind of tired of Doug. Let's see. You've bored me now, Doug, with your insolence. King Philip IV died of a stroke while hunting in November in 1314 within the year. That sucks, bro. Everybody died in hunting accidents back in the day. Pope Clement V died roughly a month later on April 20th, 1314. Let's see.
There was let's also put it this way. I think there's a lot of times I wonder about this. This will never be proven. There's a lot of times when you see when some noble died in a hunting accident.
True.
We kind of wonder.
They shot him. 100%. I've thought that before too. Like, hunting
accident, or did his bodyguards discreetly kill him?
Like a hunting accident, like Dick Cheney hunting accident.
That's crazy. Let's get rid of him now.
Kind of like, ooh, whoops. I thought that was a boar. My bad.
Yeah, exactly. It's
sorry about that.
Yeah, we're out here in the woods. We've all kind of made a pact never to talk about this.
It's like, well, it looks like you shot him from behind. Oh no. I thought it was a boar. Sorry about that.
Yeah, and there's this is kind of why I this is one of my soapboxes. I really don't like Game of Thrones.
Yeah, no, I just wasn't
because I think it gives a really inaccurate portrayal of kind of what medieval society looks like.
Yeah.
And one of them is if you actually had a king who was like insane and burning people alive, right? Like
they'd eventually take him out.
His bodyguards would discreetly kill him in a hunting accident.
It's kind of the benefit of a monarchy is like, well, you only have the one guy. You don't have to like go through all of his constituents.
Especially especially in a case like if the prince was like a promising.
They like the prince,
like the prince, and the prince seems to be like a sane guy. It's like, yeah, let's just discreetly arrange for this. Kind
of the worst thing you could have as a king is a really cool prince. Like, tone it down a notch, bro.
So I kind of wonder a lot of times in history. When you read about like some noble or some king or whatever died in an accident, there's some of that's like, did they die in an accident, or again were they discreetly killed?
Like I think the same thing about Patton, George Patton. He died in a.
What's really okay? So if any of you heard of King Tutankhamun, right? It's now widely believed that Tutankhamun was assassinated.
Yep.
Like, that he was killed.
If it seems just a little too convenient,
the wound that apparently killed him was on his bag, and it's like, oh, something, poor old fall on this.
Even poor Utsi. Remember the Iceman, Utsi, the Iceman they found, and they're like, oh, he starved. He collapsed. Like, no, even poor Utsi got shot. They took out poor Utsi.
Yeah, and it was a but King Tutankhamun was the leading theory now is kind of he was killed, and the reason is because he was trying. So his father Akhenaten had tried to change the Egyptian mythology to his kind of. He had to try to change it to Atenism, to this monotheistic variant of the Egyptian mythology.
Which is
and he had tried to convert their people to that, and had failed and died, and as his son Tutankhamun got older, it was started to look more and more like he was gonna go kind of the same
go down that route.
So he was killed. That's why his tomb was never discovered, because they didn't write down the location, because they didn't want there was he wasn't buried with the rest of the like where you would normally expect for a royal to have been buried.
They're just like, it's better
covered for so long.
Yeah, it's just better to sweep it under the rug.
Let's just have it fade into history. We didn't actually know much about Akhenaten for a long time, because the Egyptians scrubbed the record of him. They hated him so much that they tried to erase him from history.
And it's like Tutankhamun died at very young, so he only had a couple years, and he really made him mad, huh?
Yeah, well, because I that's the leading theory is that he was starting to push to lean more towards his father's religious views, and that's the kind of time when you're just discreetly unalived by your bodyguards.
It didn't work then. Let's try and work with the people. Let's see.
So yeah, that's the kind of thing that I wonder. You wonder was the so and so died in a hunting. Did they really die in a hunting accident, or did their bodyguards decide, you know what, this guy's a madman, and he just burned alive these
look at Caesar,
holy men, right?
All of his boys were just
maybe we just kind of like, we all make a pact here that we're gonna just take care of this ourselves.
It's way easier,
way out here in the woods,
And they don't have this is not to belabor the point, but it's like, this is pre-Christian times. There's no "thou shalt not kill." It's just like, that's convenient. Let's just get rid of this guy.
Too, quite honestly, it's like, well, look, sometimes
no, absolutely.
Sometimes for the greater good, some of the hard men have to kind of make those decisions. And
there's been a couple popes that's happened to, probably several patriarchs that's happened to. Yeah. The only one that who's the king that died in the jousting accident? I'd buy that one, because it happened.
Those I definitely believe happened.
And kind of like, respect to you, bro. You had your, you know what I mean? Like Teddy Roosevelt says, the credit belongs to the man in the arena. And it's like, wow, he's out there. He's getting after it as the king. Sam, we have a lot of pro Sam comments. Bring Sam back. Sam is great.
I hope to be back. I have really enjoyed this.
We will absolutely be doing this again soon, man. This is great. Josh says, thanks. You should have Sam on again. Can I? Yeah, Josh, I'll have you on, bro. No problem. I'll email you. This is my first time having guests on too, so I was just learning how this all works. Jeff says it would make more sense if the dinosaurs had feathers. Trey, like I'm just dubious of anything the paleontologists say nowadays. I just realized my feed was behind this whole time. No worries, man. You can watch this again. I'm glad you made it, Jeff. Let's see where Deus Volt says Mark Kavitsky. God wills it. Deus Volt, bro. Masada is an ancient dramatic mountaintop fortress in Israel. Is that where the Maccabees were?
I don't know the answer to that.
Well, we'll let you off the hook this time. Couldn't understand having to take out the women. Can't imagine having to take out the women. Understand the utility. I mean, yes, I guess that's
it's sparing them again from.
And Jeff's an Orthodox catechumen.
Really horrendous things that we can't say on stream happen.
Yeah, we literally can't say it. It's so bad, and it's like, you know what? That might have been your duty as a man to carry out. It's rough stuff. It again, anyone that says, "Oh, I wish I lived in this time in history or that time in history," I'm just like, no, you don't. It was all horrible. Like now's not a cakewalk, but it was all horrible.
Yeah, and you know, and there was and there was good and bad parts to it, right? This is the like I said, for most of the Middle Ages, actually, Europe was actually a much more peaceful, than kind of the centuries preceding and after. Because afterwards you get the wars of religion that were the
split of Protestantism,
the wars between the Protestants and the Catholics, and it divides. It kind of gives it gives people an excuse to go back to doing kind of the same kind of warfare that was more, you know, that Christianity had kind of suppressed those urges for
that is
years.
The moral relativism, really.
Yes.
It's
and
like
then,
that's
and then,
what we're
then,
talking
and
about.
then a lot of the rise of Protestantism was interlinked with political factors in Europe.
100%.
Like a lot of the times, the nations that would adopt Protestantism, and part of the reason is, well, because that gives me the authority to rebel against my king,
100%,
and to wage war against my neighbors.
And it unyokes you of the authority of the Pope. Like
the Pope can't excommunicate me for doing these things, which is what happened in the Middle Ages. Is if kings started to get too violent with their neighbors, the Pope would issue decrees and say you can't do that. You know,
and there's nothing a king hates worse than being told what to do. Yep. And that was the reality of all of Europe, of Western Europe at the time.
Yeah, because so feudalism was a very decentralized form of government, but what happens is kind of in the end of Middle Ages is you start to get the development of nation states.
Yeah,
power starts consolidating at the top.
Mm-hmm.
It's
more and more centralized,
more and more centralized, more and more consolidated, more and more like that's where you get things like people think that like divine right of kings is a medieval term. It's like, no, that's a post-Enlightenment term.
Really?
Nobody in the Middle Ages thought that their kings were divinely appointed by God.
They're civil authorities.
That does not occur. That does not kind of happen until the Renaissance.
Is that a way to?
It was a way to justify the consolidation of their power.
And is it a way to separate from papal power and assign that papal power to individual?
Yes. Okay. Yes, a little bit. And there prior to that was a much more kind of this idea that there were that spiritual power was separate from temporal power.
Yes.
Right. And this is what most of the Christian world, East and West, kind of operates under this principle up until the Renaissance and later. Is that what's sometimes articulated as the two-sword theory. Mm-hmm. And this is the idea that there's the sword of divine authority, which is the power to forgive sins, right?
Yeah.
You know,
which is the only paradigm that Christianity exists under at this time.
And then there's the sort of temporal authority, which is you know, the state's authority, the state's authority to send you to death, you know, to go to war, to do whatever. And the idea in Christianity up until kind of the Renaissance and the kind of divisions that happen is that the sword of temporal authority should not wield, like the holder of either sword should not wield the other.
It should be two different.
Priests shouldn't have, and bishops shouldn't have armies.
Yes.
And
Or political authority.
and kings don't have the ability to forgive sins.
Absolutely.
And now over time, this kind of, that was the dominant theory for a long time, and then it kind of you start to get this kind of consolidation of power, and it happens both within the church and within
Sure, yeah, absolutely,
as well. As why when you start getting the
Vatican
papal
I.
armies, basically,
yeah.
And where the papacy basically gets traded out to the highest bidder for a while, among the kind of Italian
aristocracy,
the wealthy Italian city states. It's like which is a problem. The big family, like the Borgias and some of the others. And so it's the Middle Ages itself was a much more decentralized time.
And then post Enlightenment, we see this centralization of the power, and that power being one person wielding both those swords.
Yes, and it's and the problems that brings too. Like I think that's it's clear to see that kind of and what happens kind of inevitably after that is the wars start to intensify, and they get more and more violent. They get more and more wars in Europe between different nations. As the technology of war also develops, right? You get more and more death that way.
Yeah.
You get so you have the bubonic plague kind of wipes out a lot of populations. Then the population explodes after that.
Yeah.
And so you get, so a lot of things just change at that point. And it's again, this is part of why I'm such a romantic about the Middle Ages. Cause I look back on these eras like, I should have just been a knight in the Holy Roman Empire. And, that was that's my authentic self.
I would be down. The only thing that I'm like, oh, that's a no-go is the leprosy. That's a hard no for me.
And with my luck, I was born, I had been born, hundreds of years ago. I'd have been a peasant or whatever too. So I wouldn't even got to be a knight.
I'd still just be some hillbilly up in Scotland or something.
Yep.
Causing trouble. Let's see. Josh McAllister says, I sent you an email, sent some art for Sam to see if you don't mind showing him. Absolutely. I think Sam will love it, man.
Show me that.
I think we are at the end of the chat. So that should do it. We're almost at 4 hours. So thank you so much for your time, Sam. And thank you for coming and hanging. We'll have you back anytime. We'll get you back on. The people love it, man. I've never seen so many consistent comments where it's like, oh, this guy's great. I wish they said that about me. You know how long I've been talking on here. But anything you want to add? Is there anything else you want to put in before we?
No, I thank you guys for having me. I really do hope to be back. I enjoyed this a lot. This is my ideal evening.
Likewise, yeah. This is
in many ways, just sit here talking about history.
It's we can cover the Crusades and many more things. So expect Sam to be back, man. This has been a blast for me. So thank you for everybody that tuned in. Thank you for everyone who put in super chats. Thank you for everyone for all your questions. Like I think I say this every night, but I really have a blast hanging out with everybody. This is the highlight of my day, and it's great to hang out with Sam and all of you. So thank you everybody for all the support. We will have go check out our last compilation. We have so many. The Texas Rangers, our last compilation. We've got a bunch of shorts coming up for you guys. An episode coming up, the Dade Massacre. I'm psyched for you guys to see this one. It's going to be good. It's intense. It's brutal. Happens in the Florida swamps. You guys are going to dig it. Bunch of episodes after that. We'll be doing a movie night for Kingdom of Heaven. Hopefully we can squeeze that in this week. And Sam will be back. So thank you for everyone and coming and hanging out. Had a blast. And we'll see you soon. Thanks again. God bless. And y'all have a good night.
Thank you.
In stream.